Yeah.
Hopefully he's gonna.
All right, we have Julian that's going to be with us again. He spoke to us last week about the New World Order, about how to keep your name from being captured in all capital letters. He's got a lot of good information about all types of world events. And we're going to go ahead and pull it up right now on Facebook. You got it recorded? Johnny.
This is how I kind of met him, for those of you that weren't here. Me and Julian have gone through the same thing, as well as about 25 million other parents. And we've lost our kids in family court, where one parent kidnapped the other child or withheld them. And then the judges gave us 0 visits because they brainwashed our kids to reject us. That's what parental alienation means. So Julian became, I don't know, an advocate over in the UK for people going through this, and then he learned a whole lot about other corruption. And I met him in a narcissistic abuse group trying to figure out why this was taking place. So that's how we've met about 4 years ago. Not in person. He doesn't want to be on the screen, so we just call him.
Is it already on now, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, Julian.
Okay. Hi there, everybody.
That's Frank in the background.
That was Frank. That's Frank.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Jody should have up on screen a copy of the Setwe KB Act. It won't be a very good copy. But what I would suggest is whilst you're actually talking to me on the phone, if you were to type in Setwe KB Act 1666 and go to the UK government website, you'll be able to get your own copy up on your phone. It will be a good little wave of encouragement for the people, because it means you'll be able to zoom up and read better. I can't imagine it's very clear on the screen. Obviously, I can't see for myself. What I'll do is main focus on this today, and the main focus for this is it doesn't make any difference what situation you're coming from, whether you consider the vaccine thing the harmful thing and the priority, whether you're coming from children being stolen, whether you think business is being taken down, whether the mortgage fraud and people having their houses removed and assets stripped by what's known as the mortgage fraud. Any of these different scams and PCR tests, all of these things are only possible and profitable by the document that you've got on the screen. So it doesn't make any difference what field you come from. This is the only thing that will bring down the New World Order. I can guarantee you that. Okay? If somebody doesn't know about this, then they need to know about it, and you will identify immediately who is an agent by those people who try to obscure, obstruct, or discredit you for bringing up this information. This literally will make a Freemasonic judge in a fraud court stand up and abandon the room. It will make anybody who is doing bond equity disappear very quick, because what they're doing is a criminal act via deception and via extortion. Okay? And anything to do with legal fraud regarding police, it means from this document, you knowing about this means you are recognised as a human being, not as a bond equity profiteering trading object. That means that you're put into a legal remit instead of you're standing in law. Okay? This is what the Templars and Jesuits pursued, hence the year, by sneaking this into the parliamentary laws of the UK, which are your law structure. And if you've got anybody who is stating this different, I can tell you, you have got an agent amongst you if they're telling you that the laws in America don't come from England. Okay, and this the point of this is it's not that laws don't come from England. Okay, is you'll notice that everybody talks of legal, and that is the legal fraud, and it's only possible by the naming capitals of you not being recognised as a human, but you being recognised by your trust account that most people don't know they've got.
I would like to say something.
One second,
Okay,
one
so
second.
if I was
Julian, hold on. Glenn wants to say something?
I'm not disputing anything you're saying. I would just like to add that the Sestakay, they call it a Sestakay use that's in the DC code that was passed in 1901 by the US Congress. And so, and the DC code became United States code, which is what you see now as United States code. So it's all here too, for sure.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yep, and that's the thing, undoubtedly, it's literally why the 9/11 stunts were pulled, so that this could be put with the birth certificates, the Freemasonic lodges and central banks into Middle Eastern countries. Basically, this was the deciding factor against the people, okay, and has been instilled, so it's highly profitable for those sitting in positions of secret societies and as political puppets or media puppets, and it means that they get the substantial supremacy and are always protected, because everything to put this in place has been an ongoing plan that was an original Babylonian Roman plan, was set out by columns and timing points from columns. It's what the obelisks in the UK, USA, France, going back to the centre pinnacle one in the Vatican, is timed off of, and it's the pinnacle thing which it doesn't enslave somebody in the sense of they belong as people think. What it does is it means that by their naivety, they've got a bank account which money is held in and hidden in, and it is laundered out by a secret spoofing through legalese and all of these corruptions. So as far as we're aware, there was a £16,000 and in the equivalent of dollars payment for a positive PCR test taken from people's trusts, and that's why there's such a big thing regarding the system doing fake PCR tests which are known to be scuppered, and why Kerry Mullis was killed and was even killed in a coded fashion, because it's highly profitable. They have doubled up the figures on the PCR test so they can have positives and negatives as they choose, and the public are just concerned by it because they're worried that they're going to have to go into lockdown and not realise that thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars are being made in profit just from the PCR test.
Okay, hold on.
Okay?
Do you guys know, hold on. Do you guys know who Kerry Mullis is?
I do.
The guy that invented the test.
Okay, right, so the guy that invented it. Okay, go on.
Is there a majority of people that know that?
No. No. Go ahead and explain. Kerry Mullis?
Right, okay, if I say briefly, what I'll say is anybody that doesn't know this, please go on your phone and click up PCR test Kerry Mullis, okay, and you'll find that he died in the same window as Epstein. And so when they did the whole thing of Epstein didn't kill himself, it was another part of the smoke ruse, which meant everyone was so worried about Epstein being killed, no one would get to hear about Kerry Mullis was going to die. And 105 days later, which is 501 backwards, which is the Illuminati number, so that the Freemasons would recognise it, 105 days before that, after that, when the Wuhan virus window was opened up, so that the Freemasons would see the pattern of who was involved, who died, who exposed, and it all coded as it was meant to be. Kerry Mullis created the PCR test, which was a test for DNA testing, very efficient at finding DNA, no good whatsoever at finding viruses, and he even states that in videos, so please another time look into the videos, you'll find he actually exposed Fauci and his concerns to do with Fauci, knowing that Fauci was a Jesuit, and the fact that his PCR test was only accurate to a degree, and after 25,000 rate, 25% rate, they put the rate up to 44% to guarantee false positives to make it highly profitable. And that's why you've got companies everywhere now trying to sell you a PCR test when you can even get free ones. Okay, that's the PCR profiteering, and it comes directly. They're able to access your trust account, not just charge you pounds or dollars. They're actually able to access your trust account, because your trust account is predominantly extensive to degrees of over millions, and they're looking for the corporations to pull this back in before the money that's in your account that would get sent back to the Treasury once you've died, if you haven't claimed it, okay, is to be sent back. So everybody's trying to get what they can out of everyone's trust accounts before they are killed by the vaccines. Okay?
Okay, one second.
Jody can vouch on. I'll continue.
Let me ask some people, because there's new people here. Do you know where this trust account's coming from? No. Okay. Can you go into that, where that trust comes from, Julian?
That's
right, the Treasury.
I'll go through the vaccine side of things, because if I go through the figures of what these figures are, then people will start to recognise that this trust account has got extensive amounts in it, and then I can go back through it. Okay. So Jody can vouch for this. I'll use the same information that she's got in from America. Okay, is that people who are having their death certificate marked with COVID, even though COVID doesn't exist, is they are having in the regions of 39,000 pounds worth of bond equity is paid out for that death certificate and goes into the corporations such as Serco, Peerbright, and would be corporations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who would start to be taking their cuts of the bond equity payments that go through with it. So each individual death certificate that gets marked up with a COVID, you'll see that's why there was this big thing of motorcyclist dies, they say he had COVID on his death certificate, was because they would get 38,000 for that. From the information that we got, and I say we, that's Jody, more importantly, I'd like to emphasise Jody's part in this, okay, is that it was deemed as about $80,000 was being received for an ex-vet, okay, being passed as dead with COVID on their death certificate, and they were having their deaths speeded up so that $80,000 could be made from the death certificate being written as COVID.
And the reason why we know that, just to let you guys know, I've got a friend that's a nurse in Boston at the VA hospital, and so that's how we know. We know how many people they've taken out. So as of about 2 months ago, it was 39 taken out by the ventilator that had the flu. Okay. It wasn't isolated. Go
You get
ahead.
80,000
80,000
for the ventilators left?
But the thing,
Yeah.
the more important matter for this is Jody is your first step before you get this evidence for yourself. Is I warned Jody that this is all going to happen. I gave Jody all of the dates of the virus of what was going to be happening regarding depopulation plans, the documents and referencing to it. Told Jody about the bond equity and lined it up with her experience regarding the family fraud court, where they do parental alienation and make thousands of dollars from alienating parents, alienating children, taking the children into foster care, having the children in foster care paying foster parents $700 a week, when they wouldn't even give $50 to the parents when they were struggling, and the council receiving their percentage of that cut as well, and that being an ongoing matter so that the children are highly profitable to the council and fulfilling local council authority quotas, which are imposed by government, and then government have that imposed on them by central banking debts, which are war debts, which never get paid off, because it keeps the money circulating out of everybody's trust accounts. Okay, these amounts will, I've said this before, but I'll go through it again. When you've got homeless people on the streets, you will see that the police will spend more time harassing a homeless person and taking their name down and writing their name, which is their name in capitals, in their notebook, rather than dealing with crimes, because in the UK the amount is £1,000 that they get, which is probably about, I think, about $1,400 for getting the name of somebody for breaking a statute and act under deceived consent. So they can take that amount out of the trust account from someone who's homeless. So the police are pushed to harass people for bond equity and write down the name on some small misdemeanor because it's worth $1,400. Okay, same thing applies. It means the US government can apply and gain access to the trust accounts of immigrants who move into the country. They can leave the taxpayers thinking it's taxpayers' money that would be paying for new accommodation for somebody who's moved into the country. But instead of that, what you'd have is the US government would apply to the central bank of the country that they came from, apply through their trust and make payments for the things that they receive here. And what they'd be doing is diluting a population which could stand up and go against them by having it diluted with immigrants who are going to do as they're told because they're grateful, because as far as they're concerned, they've received a new house, a new job, a new life, and everything is hunky-dory, and they don't want to argue with anybody because they'd just like to be in a peaceful position because they're much better off than they used to be. That leaves the public in an uproar deliberately so that the public go against the government. And this is the important part, okay? That ties in with the New World Order's agenda, which is to have a one world government, which means removing the government that you've got and in every other country, to have a one world UN government, a one world currency, which will be a digital economy, most likely the Phoenix coin, okay, and to have a one world religion, which is the Luciferian of the Vatican, okay, which is going to become amicable with all other religions, and so you've got a Luciferian religion option for everybody without people realising what Luciferian is. So then taking down the government means by setting the people against government, which you'll see is happening at the moment. They're quite happy to have people in an uproar. It's why you've got the politicians playing literally a puppet position. So they're playing the most dysfunctional they can so that people are in uproar to think, how on earth is somebody so either money grabbing or so dysfunctional get into a position in office? It's literally the Freemason facade, and they're rubbing people's nose in it so that when you wake up to it and you go and look at the evidence of it, you would be completely frustrated, anxious, because you recognise the size of what's going on, and that you sound like, wait for it, a conspiracy theorist if you suggest it. Okay, that's all part and parcel of what is the standard part. What the Setui KV does on this part is it creates the legal override of law, okay, and which is the beast that rises out of the Sea of Admiralty. The most important part is the amounts that this is actually worth. You can sit down with a calculator and do this. If you go onto a website which is called Deagle.com, okay, you can go and have a look to see the population statistics of people in the USA.
1 second.
And you offset that.
Julian, it's DEAGEL.
DEAGLE.
I don't think so. I think it's spelled different than we think. Isn't it, Glenn?
I don't know.
Deagle.com?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
DEA.
it is spelled differently. It's a military site, so you're not supposed to know about it. If more than 3 or 4 people log into it, the population figures that are set, the depopulation figures, are removed as soon as 4 or 5 people log onto it.
Anyone got it?
Okay?
.com?
Okay,
It's like-
that
yeah.
the amount of the population, offset as a share from the GDP will give you some idea of what the trust amounts are based on, and what you receive as a child, and what builds in interest because you're not actually using it, you're contributing to it instead. Okay, now in the UK we've got what's called the National Health Service, and everybody rants and raves about how good it is. That's basically on the fact that the British Empire has got the Commonwealth, and so anybody that in the UK has got substantially high amounts in their trust account, and so what was deemed as free healthcare is somebody that goes to the hospital and their trust account is automatically accessed. So we've got it what's called national insurance. So in the UK, it's actually easier to explain it to people because the bond equity is more obvious. But anything where you've got things that you consider as welfare, anything which means that you consider as something which comes as a type of insurance, anything which comes from banking and mortgage, generally what they're doing is they're charging you to borrow your own money and then charging extortionate amounts of interest on top of it to keep building up the efforts of what you do and paying back into the system having borrowed your own money in the first place. That's what the mortgage fraud is.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it also affects your credit score. Am I right? Or not, Julian?
Yeah, well, this is why people aren't able to work out. If you don't go and get yourself in debt, you can't have a good credit score. And what that means is you are profitable by how much you pay to borrow your own money. Your credit score works on the basis of how much you pay to borrow your own money. So if you've got a viable business and you don't go out and buy loans and you don't go and access your trust account, it means that you're not seen as highly profitable because they can't charge you cash and charge you bond equity at the same time, because you won't be aware that when you pay something and your bill has got your name in capitals written on top of it, is you're actually paying it twice.
Like your electric, your water? Sorry, take care of it.
Right. Okay. So that's the figures and the amounts, and this is why the system works on the basis of you need to be either involved on a legal level or on a Freemasonic level where you're in on the oaths, so that you get to recognise this is the case. Then you get to see why the aristocratic, why you get to see the Freemasons, why you get to see the narcissistic, who work on deception patterns which match this entirely. Okay, they are given a supremacy because they are more aware of this kind of faction going on, because they live with these kind of dynamics in their own life. They know how to deceive, they know deception, they know the type of people that are like them, and they recognise that all ends up through secret societies, and so hence they go and deploy them. Okay, I won't go too much into the dynamics of all of the stuff of all the Freemasons. What I can tell you is everything is hidden in plain sight. They use the foundations and basis of things called order out of chaos, and they've got several different things which work on 33 levels of different oaths and different secrecy levels, going right the way through to different levels of the Freemasons, so that they've even got deceptions in levels between them. So it's not built on trust. It works on the basis of the more things that you do to get higher up the levels, the more beneficial it is for you financially, but there is the cost to turn around and pay regarding oaths, and that all involves stuff to do with the pop industry, the celebrities that you see disappear on convenient dates or on a surprise way of passing, like Robin Williams and things like that. And if you've only got to spend 10 minutes looking into pictures, you'll start to find out that their involvement and the costs that they pay for being and having the access to this kind of thing. Okay, so going back to the Secretary KB Trust, okay, this was basically sneaked in under the canon law corruption. So if you hear of canon law, you can base this on the fact that most of it was put into place in 1666, having the Freemasons, known as the Five Friends, burning down England, putting out a pandemic, as they did that we've got at the same time. So the same ruse that was being paid out now is paid out back then. Okay, and they sneaked in the canon corruption during the same time, and this was done after the codings of everything to do with the Jesuits being created in the 1530s, to the point of where Nostradamus put out the codes of the plans in 1555. Okay, the Secretary KV Act was based off of what the Templars, as known as the Knights Templars, okay, who are at the 28th level of the Freemasons. Okay, they used to go off the battle, and when somebody went off the battle, what they would do is they would take their estate, they would place it in trust for their safekeeping whilst they were at battle. for their return to reclaim it when they got back. Okay? But what would happen is the Vatican, with their involvement, would see that there would be the assassins amongst them. So if they would like to keep hold of their estate, they would be the people that would kill off the individual who had their estate, so that they would get to keep their share of the estate. And so this estate and robbing it and taking it was set up originally as that tool regarding the Knights Templars into fighting the Holy Wars. What they did was that they then developed it so that it became part and parcel of everybody's trust and share that was meant to be handed out, because as a kingdom was growing, by law, everyone as a sovereign would have their equal share. So these equal shares, which started to get substantial and the kingdoms didn't want them being put through, meant that the individuals were withheld their estate, because the individual would be deemed dead, lost at sea, in the same way that they would withhold the estate from the Templars. So if you actually read through it, they've now actually changed it very slightly so that it's more obvious as you read it, but it will show you that it says deemed dead at sea, and requiring about being alive or dead.
I've got
So what you have done when you've had a birth.
I've got your birth certificate thing up there. The 6th.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So what they've done in sorry, it's just knocked me off track. I'm going to just get that picture up. Hold on.
Okay.
I'll go through it in the same order. Bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, so what they've done is, by deeming you dead at sea, they get to remove your estate. Okay, now you see on the left-hand side, what that does is, under the law and what's known as the Torah, you have got the title of man and woman. Okay, that then gives the verification of where you hear in England, particularly, the reference to a statesman. So people would say, why is someone called a statesman? It's because it's someone who states, I am man. When you're stating I am man, you're talking about Adam from the Torah, which is why the emphasis is the son of man. It means it's down the line of Adam. So when you say man, you mean the word Adam. When you know this information, this is where a judge will abandon the court, because they're recognizing what you're talking about is the Torah, God's law, or divine law. Okay? But because of that, what they've done, and in the reference to the titles, okay, is you lose your title of man when you take on the title of master. So a baby who's had their estate removed by the birth certificate would now take on the title, or on a boy level, of master, and that's why a boy up until the age of 13 is referred to as master. Okay, that means they're still able to be master of their own estate. Okay, then what happens at the age of 13, you've got the period of where the estate hasn't been claimed, and the child, or the male child, would change their title to Mr. And I reference this on that if you take the letters of estate, so the E, the S, the T and the A, and remove those letters from master, you're left with M and R and the title Mr, which means missed your opportunity to reclaim your estate. So by having the agreement that you are a Mr, you're letting Freemasons, anyone that's legal, anyone in authority or position of aristocracy, know that you don't know this title. So there is this big push to become a reverend, or to be an officer in the military, or you'd become a master mason, or master of ceremonies, or master. So all of the different titles which have master means that you would be reclaiming back up your position of status and so they wouldn't like to be called like master unless they're hiding as Mr. So that's the status referencing, and then what you've got at the moment, which is they're pushing for the non-recognised gender reference. So they're pushing what's known as the sacred feminine, so that you wouldn't have a Mr. or a Mrs. or Miss.
Hold on 1 second, Julian, I got another question.
Yeah, I have a friend who's now passed away. He was a Mason, and he was Mr. Kelly.
She has a friend that just passed away that's, was a Mason, and he went by Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, it's Phil Kelly usually, but everybody knew him as Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, he will do in public, but happening as soon as he was doing any deals with anybody regarding authorities, is that's where they would start to use their thumb for a handshake to start to let people know who around them is a Freemason, that they're a Freemason, and so they would very quickly then become recognised, because is if he refused to be known as Mr., the first thing you would do is say, well, why don't you have Mr. as your title? You would start up a whole load of open questions, so that's what they've hidden.
Okay.
This is one of the other things you'll recognise. If you go to a courtroom now, you'll notice that in all courtrooms, okay, they are not allowed to stop you from recording because it's your right to record. There is a public gallery, so anyone in the public can record. Okay, that is transparency on a judicial level, but you'll notice that all courts, all police say that you're not allowed to record, but if you push your right in law, you can get them to break that down. So that generally they will ask you to leave because they don't want this information being caught on camera, because they're then breaking the law by encouraging legal fraud. Okay? So that's the status, and that's how the estate is removed by deeming you dead at sea, and the estate that you were supposed to receive was meant to come from the Treasury. Okay, hence why it's called the Treasury. If you think about Admiralty and piracy and all of the reference to ships and Admiralty law, the treasure is in reference to the Treasury. It's also the treasure that's in biblical reference for the treasure and the pearl for you to look for and invest everything in. It's also in scripture that you are to look for it, and hence why the beast that rises out of the sea is also in scripture, part of the prophecy. Okay? So the next...
I was going to say, go into, if they want to hear this, go into when the baby's born, about the words about the baby can't touch the ground. You know, Julian?
No, I don't know that one.
Yeah, about birth isn't really B-I-R-H. It's like Admiralty words. And then when the baby's born.
All right, that's all. What Jodie's talking about is etymology. It's not about not touching the ground. And what Jodie's talking about is the word birth, as in a ship is birthed, and you would state that you are born, and it's your born day, not your birthday, in the same reference to the master, Mr., and the language which is called legalese. I'll come on to that bit in a short while. Okay? But that's what Jodie's talking about. It's called etymology, and it breaks down the same things. You start to realise that the words have always been there. You've just never really sat down and gone through it. And Jodie will be able to reel off numerous ones that she'd come across, and she's got this all capped off. So Jodie is literally is a good person to speak to on the same level as speaking to me.
How do you spell etymology?
Okay? So,
She wants us to know how to spell that word, etymology.
well, etymology.
E-T-Y.
You're asking one of the worst spellers.
Spelling. I think it's E-T-Y.
I think it's E-T-A.
Oh, A? A or what?
M-O-L-O-G-Y, but I would Google that
I
first.
think it's E-T-Y.
I think so.
Etymology, M-O-L-O-G-Y.
And what I heard about the baby is the reason why they catch the baby and they don't let its feet touch is because it falls to sea. That's what I
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That's why I keep it in the
Okay.
board.
The next thing is, okay, you'll see in the second line, and you'll see the way I've drawn out the infographs is that you've got 3 snares making the 6s of the 666. So you'll see they're actually snares, so that they're showing you it's a threefold deception, and any of the agents who you'd be involved with would turn around and say, oh yeah, I know about this, know about that, but they have to acknowledge all 3 because it's law, status, and the profiteering. Okay, so the central one, okay, is what is known as deceived consent. Okay, and this is in reference to the name that is created on your birth certificate isn't your name, but it uses your name to create a trading name of your trust account. So your trust account is written in capitals, the same as what it would be on your gravestone. That's the only time you should have your name written in capitals, is if you are dead, so the deemed dead at sea is relevant. And so the corporation and trust account that you've got has your name written in capitals on the birth certificate. Might be the whole name, might be part of the name, might be just the last name, but that will be the trust account name, not your name. And that's what police are looking for when they ask for your license. That's what they are looking for when you've got a passport. That's why they fill out onto any letters. And if they ask you your name, if you give them your name that matches your trust account, they've just accessed your trust account without you realising. That's why you've got the big push on things like traffic stops, where they will say license, because they get to see your card, and what you've just done is given them access to your trust account. Okay, and now that is called, and the technical name for it is deceived consent. Any statutes and acts that are put in place can only be done with your consent on a legal matter, which means you're not contracting, but by consenting you agree to do it as the norm. If you don't agree to it, you need to tell them that you don't consent. If you don't know how to do no consent, then what they do is they automatically assume you're consenting, and that is called deceived consent. Okay, because of that, immediately what that does is it means that you're not recognised and you're not entitled to law, because you're not even considered as a human being. So if you consider the fact of, if you had some information on Hillary Clinton, is that you wouldn't get recognised as a human, and if you stated Hillary Clinton by name, you wouldn't be stating her name in law. So the way they stay out of this factor is that you would need to state that you are the human being, that you are the name in lowercase, that you are a living being, and you are claiming your right to law, and you're reporting Hillary Clinton as, if that's her real name, okay, in her name in lowercase, and this is now a law matter because you're stating the crimes as they are and restoring law in the process. This is the only way you can have yourself identified and them identified properly and in law, not legal fraud.
Okay,
So this is how the indemnity works on their part, and this is where Jodie is a good person to vouch for this, is when you speak to police officers, when you speak to anybody in authority, and you tell them that you know about the name in capitals and you refer to yourself in lowercase and their selves in lowercase, you've just made them accountable. You'll find they disappear very quick.
How do you say your name in lowercase?
you just tell them, I'm the name in
That-
lowercase.
That's the main thing. What I'll do is I'll put it up in a second, in the one after this, but that's the really good point. And how you address it is, Jodie has got all of this, so she can probably show you her own versions. But that's the main part on what is called legal entrapment. So if anybody does come towards you, they're already breaking the crime by trying to access your trust account and to impose on you legal entrapment, which is a known crime. It's unlawful and it's a crime.
Johnny.
Okay, we got a question in the back,
Okay.
1 second.
The idea-
Again, I'm sorry, do police actually know about the all caps and all that?
I believe not all of them know that. Don't you believe that, Julian, or they've been taught wrong? She wants to know, do they?
Most police officers know a percentage of it. They won't know what you've just heard now, but what they will recognise is part of their procedures. They will be told, you've got to get the name of the person you're speaking of straight away. Don't do anything until you've got their name. The further the individual has been involved in these kind of things, the more knowledge they will have. But even the newbies will recognise part of what you're talking about, because they will recognise what you're emphasising is what they have been trained to emphasise themselves. So they will recognise a part of it. If you get somebody to the level of sergeant or even just someone who's been a long-term police officer, most of them have learned like more of this, like 2/3 of it, and then they get involved into it, and that's why you'll find that most police officers are really, really pressured to become Freemasons.
And a lot of the times what they'll do, the ones that kind of know, is call you a sovereign citizen right away. But you can't be both. That's an oxymoron. You're either sovereign or you're a citizen.
And they've demonized sovereign citizens.
Right.
For
The
those
really
dudes-
only true sovereign citizen, you might correct me, is the police officer. They're the ones that can drive 80 and a 20 and get by with it. We can't. But we're definitely not citizens because that's a corporation. Julian, what do you think? That's what you can't be both.
It's Jodie's exactly right. It's an oxymoron. It's a way of trapping somebody who part knows the information. So if someone says to you, "Are you a sovereign citizen?" they know I'm a sovereign. That's then what means is you've not been entrapped, and you'll find again that they get really uncomfortable because they recognise you're actually really confident and you've got this level of information that's being taught, which is minimal amounts in the population, although it's catching on fast with people waking up to all of the COVID corruption and being sick of seeing what's going on and knowing that things aren't right with what's being reported in the media. Okay? This is the key information which is going to make the difference, which brings the New World Order down, because they have to be hit by law versus legal. They have to be in a position that the Freemason judges have to fear that the components of what they've always got away with, this is the information that they fear, okay? And the financial control that they've had to exploit previously now means that you'd be taking the financial control and actually in a position to now use the financial control that you've got back on them. Okay? So the next part is
Wait 1 second.
it's actually a really good question of the names and the terminology, because if I bring in the word straw man, you'll start to get a reference to it. If you think of the Wizard of Oz, you'll see that all of the media have been playing these patterns in films. So the straw man of the Wizard of Oz is reference to not being on the straight and narrow gate, but taking the windy road of the yellow brick road, and then all of the references to this go through the films. So you've got James Bond in regarding bonds of equity, you've got straw man and the different references to the different people. So literally most films cover this, and there's numerous different things. Pirates of the Caribbean with forget his name, Davy Jones locker, and how that they're dead at sea, and all these different references you'll see have been hidden into the media. So it hits you. It becomes more frustrating when you know it, when you're trying to explain to someone who calls you a conspiracy theorist, because they can't be bothered to look.
Another thing, when he touched on Wizard of Oz, there's also the when Dorothy clicks her heels 3 times, because they have 3 times to get you back into the legal fraud. So they're going to say, where are you driving to, for example? you're not driving, unless you're commercial, unless you're for commerce. Or they might say, Miss So-and-so, and you go, no, I don't go by titles. That's all, I handle it. I don't go by titles, that's a corporation. Okay.
And this is the thing, is Jodie's had all of her own personal experiences now, where the police have actually assisted her, having originally gone in to entrap her, and then become very polite and well-mannered around her because they know what she's talking about.
They'll give me rides to the courthouse.
Okay?
Yeah. After they, I call 911. If one cop doesn't do something I want him to do, or he's doing something bad, I call 911. So this is after I had talked with Julian, and just to give you an example, I'm stalled. My car was stalled, and I saw the gas, whatever you call it, gauge. About, let me go back. 30 minutes before I ran off the road. I was up in Iowa, I was living here, but I was up in Iowa, and I was headed to court to help someone keep their grandchild out of CPS, hands. It was my cousin. I got ran off the road and a siren went off in my phone from that vehicle. It was like a plane, like a panel van. And I screamed like, ah! And 30 minutes later, I see my gas gauge just go, and I'm watching it go, ooh! And I'm on like an interstate, but I'm going over this bridge, and my car dies. And it's 20 below. And all of a sudden this passenger comes up, him and his, or a lady, guy, whatever, and says, can I help you? I said, sure. Then a cop comes up. He goes, can I help you? I said, no, we got it. He's going to push me off the side road. He goes, I'll help you too. Okay? Not a problem. Now he's acting as public servant, right? And he pushed me off the road, and then he tells the guy he's free to go. The guy that initially asked me for help. So now it's just me and this police officer.
Okay.
So he asked me for my driver's license. And I said, no, I'm not giving you that. What do you need it for? I didn't even know who I'm talking to, he said. You don't even know anything. Why didn't you know that? You were just being a good Samaritan. And he says, no, I need to know it. And then he asked me if I did drugs. I called 911. You need someone out here. The other guy did the same thing. So then I said, look, people, I don't trust any of you because of what happened with my children and the bond equity going on here. And he's like, what? And he said, you must be doing drugs. I said, no, you guys didn't help me. You said it's a civil matter. I don't play these games anymore. I called 911. Get their boss out here. The sergeant comes out, put them in their place, found out who I knew legislatively that was in there, and I know all those people. And he said, you want to ride to the courthouse? I said, huh, interesting. How do you know I'm going to the courthouse? I didn't mention that. But they know who I am. I've given my revoked consent that he helped me with to the governor, the secretary of state, the sheriff's office. There we go. I've done this before. I've given it to Governor Abbott and Governor Reynolds. So usually if I get the top guy, they don't mess with me anymore. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right, and this is the thing, the literally once you've done your revoked consent, and I don't suggest you go rushing off to do it, the amount of work that Jodie has done to put out leaflets, Jodie's actually come through it relatively lightly in most cases. What I can tell you is people that I've been dealing with is several people have died, several people have disappeared. This is going back in the past. Several people had their Wi-Fi burnt out, computers burnt out, vehicles disappeared, their pets killed because of the battle that's been going on for 5 to 6 years regarding this. Jodie has done most of the ploughing to get it to the point of where she can actually go into public offices. Most people won't because they're too scared to. And this is where on Jodie's side of things is, Jodie can vouch for this, is Jodie went straight off to the Senate, and what I would say to her is, Jodie, get these leaflets out, and Jodie would be really upset and going, Julian, no one else is putting these leaflets out, no one else is doing this, but what she saw was all of the people that didn't put the leaflets out, all failed, ended up in prison, had their partners die, and that's what she's experienced personally, and recognises now that all of the drillings I gave her have kept her safe. Okay, going back to what Jodie was talking about now, this is really important, and especially with the good question that the lady said about the name of capitals. Is Jodie, have you got the legal entrapment card there up on the picture?
No. Where did you just put it up?
Did you?
Jody?
I haven't, but I didn't know if you were getting it from.
No. Can you
I
put it
can put it
up?
up.
Okay. What do you want
You
to
know
ask?
what brought you to Texas, of what was going on up north?
While you're looking for that, I'll give her a background real quick. In 2013, my older two children were abducted from a high school. My oldest one was, I think, kind of behind it anyway, but I don't think she understood she wasn't coming back. But my son didn't know at all, because his clothes were still there. Her clothes, it looks like she had ransacked and been taken up to school, because the dad had been doing this. So then it went through 5 months before.
Jody, describe, don't over-explain.
Huh?
To describe, don't over-explain.
Okay. So anyway, 5 months go by, I go to court, and I decide I'm coming down here.
Good for you. Going to
But the
Texas.
same thing happened to my twin girls. So a PTA lady drove my twins to the airport. It took 650 days to get a court hearing. Several things. So in that amount of time is when I met him. Unfortunately, I met Julian too far, it was too late,
Oh.
really too late. If I would have known this before, and I would have known about revoking your consent or rescinding if what we hear, but handing out these, my kids would have never been gone.
Oh.
I know for a fact they would have never been gone.
Oh.
So,
May I have one of those?
The important part about this as well is on Jody's part, because it's so personal, it's really difficult. And that's why I sort of said describe rather than explain. The key thing about it is the system will place the children with the abuser as standard. What they do is they, having done that, knowing that the abuser won't really be that interested unless they really are narcissistic control freaks, then what they do is they take the children off into the system so that the children are then profitable to the system. And that's part of the New World Order, is to make it so that the state runs what happens with your children. That's why you're getting all of the gender biasing stuff in schools, and they're doing everything on a confusional basis. Okay, to go back to the legalese. Okay,
I got your card
the
up.
referencing to what. Excellent. The really good question that the lady suggested about how do you identify yourself. Okay, that's the key thing. Is it's very difficult, especially if you're not recording, to do the identification and then have evidence that you didn't give them access to your trust account. So the first thing I suggest to everybody is, if the police pull you over, is they have got cameras, you work on the basis of equality, and you record, you're recording for your safety, their safety, and you record everything that's stated. Better than that, if you can get it so that you've got what you're recording is being live streamed, which means it's not recorded onto your phone, it's live streamed onto your Skybox or the different terminal like Facebook or something like that. It means they can't take your phone and use the recording, so they're stuck. Okay? Then this is what we use as an identification card. And what I do is I get people to have one of these on the dashboard, by their front door, by their phone, so they've always got a copy to hand. So if they get caught short, if somebody comes up and says, "Who are you?" so that you're not seen as being terrorist, you're not seen as being obstructive. Your details, and the only details that they need for you to identify yourself, are on this card. But this card actually is a law-served document because it states the crime of legal entrapment at the top. So when you hand that to them, the first thing that they read is legal entrapment is unlawful and a crime, and that has them put on notice that if they legally entrap you, you can then sue them for a lawsuit for breaking the law of legal entrapment.
Now, the only
Okay,
thing,
so
the
my
only thing
suggestion
different,
is you don't-
the only thing different on his, see where he's got this date down here, you guys? This is when he was like learning it. That's what that date is. So on mine, it says 1/1/2019, and I put, and without expiration. So you just make your own, but you definitely gotta put lowercase and then your date of birth. But that's your reasonable ID. You know, that's what they call it, reasonable ID.
Okay?
Okay.
Right, and what that means is you haven't been obstructive, you've done everything with law, and on your part, what I would do is make sure that you get their identification on the record first, because they have to identify you, you don't have to identify yourself. This is even better, because if you have got them recorded reading this, you can then start a £2 to £3 million lawsuit for the crime of legal entrapment, on top of any kind of harassment. By handing over your driver's license, what you've done is you've agreed to legal entrapment, and this is where the terms of citizen and against the public and legalese becomes really important. Okay, so because you can now see there's this vast difference between law versus legal. Okay, the legalese is the way that when you start to impose your right of law on them by identifying yourself, okay, there's a little table tennis game that goes backwards and forwards where they will try to use different techniques to get you back into the legal remit and test to see what your knowledge is.
So think
So
of
never
Wizard of Oz, the three chances is what they usually try, it's 3 times.
So,
That's what they usually try. Go ahead.
Okay, well, never say you understand. Okay, never say that you're a civilian or a citizen. You say you're a member of the public, and in America particularly, that's a big one because you'll have people who do the thing of, oh, well, that doesn't mean you're part of the republic and blah blah blah, all the references. But a member of the public means that you are a human being and a part of the nation, and even better than a member of the public is that you are a sovereign. Okay, so those are legalese terms. There's numerous other ones. Another big one is if you were to go to a courtroom and a judge would say to you, having been assaulted by police, and said to you, "Did you suffer?" Okay, and you would jump to say, "Yes, I suffered extensively because I was hurt. I had my." If you have said that you suffered, suffer is a legalese term for accept. So what you've done is said, I accepted it, and you've allowed it so that they won't press charges because you've been tricked into a legalese word that says that you don't want to.
Women's suffrage.
Okay, so this is why you don't need to know substantial amounts of legalese, but to know enough that they can see that you know this kind of information. They will leave you well alone the moment you especially know about the Statutory KB Act 1666. If you state that to anybody in authority that you know all about it, they will leave you well alone.
And just like Carrie Zolman said earlier, they get him out of there, right? Because they don't want to lose all that money when he's telling everybody, or he's up there and teaching the people that are getting ready to go pay their bill, right? Just like they,
Right.
I believe Julian got a ride home from the officer out of jail because he can teach him this too. Yeah.
So the next thing is, if you think about things like masks being imposed, being told that you have to have a mandatory, anything that they're saying is mandatory, that you haven't signed, agreed to, or anything like that, there is no such thing as mandatory in legal. What they're stating is it's mandatory to your trust account. Same thing applies if you tell them you don't consent, and you tell them you know the law, and that you will impose a lawsuit on them for legal entrapment and imposing what they're calling as mandatory in a legal matter, is that's unlawful. And now what you can do is, again, start a lawsuit against them and go after their bonds of equity. So if you've got somebody who's a broke police officer laughing, going, ha ha, you can try and sue me, I haven't got anything. You can say, no, you have got plenty on your trust account, and what your trust account doesn't pay for, your sergeants will, and the Freemasons after them. So they won't be too pleased if you get drawn into a lawsuit. You'll see the smirky look on their face disappear very quick. So anything that involves what's called collusion means that you can go on a larger basis, because if you were harassed by more than one police officer, you can go after all of them and go after their trust accounts, and their trust account will have to reimburse you your lawsuit and compensation.
Can I ask another question?
And another question, one second.
Okay. in Texas, in Colleyville, Texas, our mayor, who's awesome, he's very conservative. He did not shut down the city council or anything and make everybody wear masks. People were coming, I was coming, and I was not wearing a mask. And so the mayor is awesome. He said you don't have to wear a mask in the city. However, the governor makes me wonder if this isn't part of this.
She is saying, there's a mayor in a town called Colleyville, I told you about this before, Julian. He didn't enforce it, he didn't get code enforcement to go to the businesses, none of that with the mask, but the governor that wrote these unlawful executive orders.
Governor Abbott forced, you know, it's like.
Greg Abbott.
That destroyed 30,000 businesses.
Yeah, but this,
Yeah.
That are gone.
well, this is the thing. If you listen to the word of what Jodie's just said, okay, what did the governor write?
What kind of
An
order?
unlawful act, an unlawful
But what kind of order?
Executive.
executive.
But I would still go to the store
Okay, so
and not wear.
where do you find executive? Where do you find an executive?
In a corporation.
Corporation.
Exactly. Okay, so that all of the words are there. If you sit there and go through the words, there's all big indicators regards to it, and that's your key thing of what they're imposing. Do I have to do it? No, I don't. That's legal. That's got nothing to do with me. I'm a human being. The law only applies to me. I'm law abiding and I'm law enforcing. They're doing legal fraud.
So let me jump in here. So when I was working at Bass Pro and they started doing this, when I walked up to the door the day they were going to implement this, I saw it said Judge Whitley wrote an executive order. There was no clerk signature either, or name, or none of that. So I called down to Judge Whitley's and said, I got a problem. There's an executive order on the door. Looks like it's a copy from maybe a 5th grader on plain white paper. And there's no clerk's signature either. She goes, we're going to take care of that next week. So it was already, they knew it was fake. But I said, that's a corporation. They go, oh yeah, it is. What? Well, I don't have to abide by this. I just walked in.
Good for you.
Yeah. But, I essentially went on
Okay.
unemployment because they wouldn't let me.
Jodie, are you able to put up the next one, please?
Okay.
Cool. Okay, the next one I've got that I'm putting up now, and this is the kind of the shock one, okay, is basically the use of fraud documents or bogus documents. Okay, Jodie has been with me since I think it's about 2018, and she can vouch on her part with the multitudes of different people she's spoken to. I've been doing it for 5 years, and in every single situation regarding family fraud court, county court, there's never been one lawful court order or a real document that is to the facts of what a court order needs to be. And this is the point, is they can't write a real court order because they'd be breaking the law and giving you evidence of a crime if they did. Okay? So you will find that they are very careful about this. It's such things as a bailiff who will turn up at your door and won't serve you your document, yet they will state it comes from a court, as you can tell anybody that you're not dealing with anything until you've been served your document for your keep, for your own evidence. Anything which isn't served, isn't stamped, isn't signed, okay, and most importantly, is not written with your name in lowercase, is not addressed to you. So anything which is stating something to you with your name in capitals, okay, is a bogus document. So I've created these infographics because of like Jodie would be in groups and you're not able to speak up to people all the time or give them the details, and it takes too long to talk them through and to read them out. So what we do is we give these infographics over to people so that they get to recognise what you're actually supposed to receive as a proper court order or a warrant. The other important thing to reference in this is in 2017, specifically on the 15th of October, the legal override of law the last part of their track was completed, especially in regards to the COVID scam that came from it, was completed by making it so that you would have to fill out a legally entrapping document to go and see a law master in the Royal Courts of Justice in the UK, which is where the main library was and where the extensive parts of all law originally came from. So it's the key place regarding law, and that was the last piece that meant that the highest office and the highest officers in the courts, which were lawyers who you would need to go and see, sorry, not lawyers, they're law masters, who you would need to go and see regarding legal entrapment if you were taking it to the highest level. There was a form that had to be filled out with your name in capitals to legally entrap you to go and see them, and you would need your legal entrapment card would equally work on them, because that no one is above the law. So that legal entrapment card can be used right way through to the highest level.
And, okay, let me jump in here. The legal entrapment card, I did use it. I got a warrant in the mail on an orange card, color of his shirt, orange, which is black lettering, had my name in all capital letters. So I took a witness with me to the guy that's supposed to be issued at the office. I walked in with that, with my revoked consent, and I believe a public notice, but also that legal entrapment card like he had up earlier. It would say Jody Mueller, lowercase. I walked in, I said, I need all these stamped and given it to the judge. And she goes, what is this? I need your identification. I said, no, you're going to use that reasonable ID. She went back and I could see someone's hands, you know, like, oh, they were going crazy. She came back, stamped it. I said, now tell me where the man is, or the prosecutor, whatever they're called, that's going to come and get me, that issued this warrant. So she goes down the hall. I said, okay. Took my witness with me. I'm filming this. We went down there and I said, where's the guy that's supposedly going to arrest me? And she goes, he's in there. He just got a phone call. Of course he did. They just called him. So he's on the phone with the people down the hall. And I said, here you go. She goes, where did you get this stamp? I go, down there. And I said, you're going to give it to him, right? She goes, yeah, hold on. I said, okay. So I'm waiting. I didn't know. Am I going to jail? I didn't think so, because it's fake. And she just came back out and said, he said you can go. I said, okay, thank you. And I waited in my car for 20 minutes, and cops were coming out and going to their cars. And it was fake. And the interesting thing, the orange cards were in a stack this high next to the lady's typewriter.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah. So you can use that legal entrapment card, that's what we call it, as your ID. So when you go take stuff in, they want your ID, give them that, have them stamp it. Date stamp it.
They hate it, too.
Yeah.
Okay, Darren?
Go ahead.
Okay, so on behalf of other people, is there anything that people are missed, they're not sure about, or anything which means they've heard a lot of things?
I will send you some of these, and then there's videos, and you'll catch on a little bit.
That revoked thing right here.
Yeah, legal entrapment.
Yeah, do you have to have submitted those other forms to the governor and all those other places that you're talking about in order for that to be?
No, you can use that anywhere. She's asking if you have to submit the form like I did to the governor. Use the legal entrapment card.
No, on this thing, Jody is really advanced in what she's done regarding the revoked consent. Even now, she will still need to maintain with different people that she's done it, which is it's not actually that difficult. There's not that much to do. The harder part is getting enough support for people around you via leaflets and educating other people and getting it so you're in a position. Just to let you know, what the room full of people that you've got is actually really rare, that you've got a group of people who are meeting on a regular basis who know this information. But you can imagine on the side of things, it's in exactly the same fashion as telling somebody that the vaccines are dangerous and there is no COVID and that they're wearing a mask is getting easier to break through to people. But there are numerous people out there who are going to go against you and never believe you. On that part, this is the information that protects you from them equally, and it works on the level of getting enough people behind you before you put your revoked consent in, so that, because I get what I call it the 3-day tantrum, is when the system recognises you having put something in as a revoked consent, you will generally get some form of retaliation regarding police coming to your door, or something to the level of you'll find that you're followed by the police as they're trying to establish how educated you are on it. So some people who have got issues regarding bailiffs, if they've got situations that they've been chased down for drink driving that they didn't do, or they're being done for parking fines and stuff like that, all those small things are good things to get to practice on, so that you can use the card, use the revoked consent, see the reactions that you get, and then you could substantiate it, and then you're in a position to get more people. The horrible part is it means most people who are in trouble find out quicker and have the best reactions, because they are pushed into that situation.
Well, I'm curious about whether or not attorneys are going to be on our side in these cases. No. Okay. So going to one is
The simple answer to that is no. What you're going to find is any attorneys that have been part of this corruption are going to have a backlog of people who, when they find this information out, are going to be after them for a lawsuit. So even on the basis that they were justice orientated and didn't really know about this information, it's not going to be to their benefit to announce this unless they've done everything in their means to work properly for the individual, not for the system. And any attorney that you know who's dealing with family fraud court, dealing with the Phoenix scam, mortgage fraud, that they are there they work for the system, and it's their job to coerce you to do everything that's the opposite of what we're just teaching you.
So okay, so did that answer you a little bit? And the revoked consent, we do on, I don't know, I guess some of us do it different. I made several of mine an affidavit form, and I basically did it like the legal entrapment card. It just kind of said, I'm not consenting with any corporation, entity, agency. I'm Jody, you are a living woman. And like, I went to the Secretary of State in Iowa, handed it in, got it stamped, and I said, where's Kim Reynolds? Because I don't think it's the office I keep going to. I'm talking about the governor here. And she goes, no, that's where the staff is. She's right across the hall. I walked over there and they slammed the door. So they made calls that fast. So I just knocked on the door and said, hey Kimmy, I'm out here. I'm just giving you revoked consent, and I slipped it underneath the door. But now, because of what I've done, I went to the sheriff's office. I used to have a cop follow me every time I went to Iowa. My ex would have this cop follow me. So he's following me on Facebook. Now the cop gets behind me. Now I've got a truck instead. He veers off and goes away because of all the stuff I've given him. But it can be however you want to write it. Just I would go by his legal entrapment wording. And you can do an affidavit. Now, I think Julian probably would use an affidavit like a notary, because he believes you're going back into the fraud. I believe Julian probably gets 2 or 3 witnesses. Am I right, Julian?
I do it on a minimal basis, so that the system doesn't see you as a direct threat straight away. I get people to do it on a gradual basis and to build it up. This is the thing, Jody has done most of that work around you, but I would still get you to copy what Jody has done to keep your own safety a priority. Okay? The other thing is to mention as well, is in the wordings that we've been speaking about, okay, is getting to recognise the difference of the word of legis and regis. So anything that is, like they said about attorneys, there's anyone who is legal, does legislation, or is a legislator, okay, is going to be different to someone who does registration, or does, if you register to something, or you have a certificate of registration, anything like that is getting to recognise that regis is in reference to regal, and then legis is in reference to legal. And so I would look more into those, because the more confident you are about those, the more the terminology will fit regarding the things that you deal with.
And they go get your home, just so you know, if you're elderly, and they pretend you ran out of Medicaid and Medicare, they'll go after your house, get you a guardianship, and they can go after your house. Doesn't matter if it's paid off or not, your name is in all caps on your mortgage. It doesn't belong to you. You pay it off all day long.
Yeah, but if you paid off your mortgage, is it on the title?
It's on the title, but I believe the title's a certificate of title. Certificate's an abstract, correct? It's really nice.
Well, it doesn't make a difference whether you call it deeds, titles, anything to do with the property. If your name is in lowercase on the property, anything on that basis will mean that you've been recognised as a human. The key words to this is the difference between property and an asset. Okay, is if you've got a document that states that your property is an asset of your name in capitals, so it would be an asset from the trust fund. It means they can asset strip it from you rather than you protect your property in law. If you know about it, you can protect it, and they don't like that. But that's the way that they were able to take people's businesses, companies, and things out from underneath them. It's not just recognise the individual, but it's because the identification that they use, not that you use, would be used to take your property. One of the key things to this is anyone that's mechanically minded with vehicles? Is it anyone present?
Jason,
What was the question?
are you mechanically minded, Vince or Jason?
A little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you have like chassis numbers or what we call VIN numbers? So you have an identification stamp.
Right, VIN number.
Chassis.
Yeah.
It would be a VIN number.
Right. Okay. If you were to, let's say, the best thing you could do would be to sell your vehicle to Jody for $1, and Jody to sell it back to you for $1, and for the receipt to have that you have bought the vehicle with the chassis number identification on, not your registration number, so that you've got a receipt for the chassis. That means that chassis is your property, instead of using state documents to show you've got a document with your name written in capitals with it registered, which means they can take it.
And what do you know a mortgage is? I don't know if Lynn knows that. I heard get a chain of title. Maybe put a patent on your property or your land. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you know that.
And to show that a mortgage is in reference to that, if you look up the word mortgage, it means to be dead, and it's all in reference again. I won't go down that route at the moment because you've got enough kind of information to go with, but anything you can see that corporation means in reference to corpse, and mort is in reference to the word dead, and so you've got all the references there to back it up in the same way as we were saying about etymology.
A mortgage means death pledge. What was the question you got? One second, Julian. 1 second.
A lot of information, but I just wanted, on you in particular, did you go through all this with this help, or did you need an attorney to help you at all?
Oh, no. I've never had an attorney help me. I never will ever again.
Have you met any attorneys that saw this?
Oh, no. They know it. I think they know it. They're not going to tell you that. I called my favorite attorney, the only one I liked really, from my first situation with Older. And he's like, I don't know if I want to get into that. So I know he knows. And we were friends.
If you imagine, do you know an attorney who isn't well off?
You know an attorney that's not well off? The only one I know that's not well off is a constitutional lawyer, Rick Martin. I don't believe he's well off.
Right, okay, and the reason attorneys are being paid by your body effectively, so they are accessing your trust account to do this work for you to set you up to send you in to have the rest of your bond of equities, that's on top of the money that you pay them for their services.
So they get your retainers, and then they get money off your. And the judges get it too.
That's how they're paid. The next thing is if people can grasp now what's actually happening regarding the system, you can see that if they can't access your trust account, they can't provide the corporations the funding to chase you, to chase the police, to come after you, and so the financial strangulation hold that they've got on you is now in your hands. So what I would say is a very important thing is that if you treat this trust account exactly the same way you would a bank account, don't sign it to anybody. If you have people come around and say, oh, you need to sign your birth certificate over to this, it's utter nonsense, okay? Jodie will tell you is I've never charged anybody anything because this truth is for free, and the whole purpose of this is to make you independent. When you've got independent control, you're in a position to work out who you're going to allow to have access to your trust account, and then on each individual basis means that you can actually not fund corruption, not fund legal frauds, not fund any of the Freemasonic kind of movements that are going, and so you're now in a position of control and into restoring law and to cleaning the courts and to cleaning the government out of the corruption. So it puts you in, it literally turns the tables on your position in empowering you. That is the only way that the New World Order will be brought down, because you need to be in the position to put these people at threat, and you can see how they've kept everyone debilitated by the information that's received.
Okay, we got another one. Hold on.
Lot of information, Ken.
Yeah.
What's the top 3 steps to do now in order to have access to these funds that are on?
But
Access to the information.
Okay, there's 22 steps to do before you get to this point, and that's to get it so that 1, you're functioning, 2, you're getting other people to function around you. Even family members, okay, become difficult because of things like the sodium fluoride in water. You've got GMO effects to do with vegetables. You've got people who are depleted of iodine in their diet. Okay, so first and foremost, what we do is we get people to do the 22 to-dos on a basis of get them done as quick as we can, but to remove things like suppressants, anything that are that are like empathy suppressants, okay, and then to start learning not just about the law side of things, but learning about narcissistic profiling, because the people who will come after you and make your life difficult will include family members, and you need to be in a position to have the heads up and be 2 steps in front of everybody who's going to try to stop you doing what you're doing.
Do you want to find that? Do you want to find that, Julian? That infographic?
Yep.
Okay, so he was saying he's got a 22 to do to help you, like, kind of get this wrapped around you. You know, like I couldn't catch on.
Because
For a while.
it's just us, we don't have any.
Me just taking out sodium fluoride alone, out of the toothpaste alone, has helped me,
Yeah.
believe it or not. It suppresses empathy. I wouldn't even cry. I never cried. And then now that's, I obliterated that from my pantry. I can cry like even it's like sappy commercials. So this is what Hitler used, you know, in the concentration camps. Because I always wondered in school, why are they walking by dead people that are probably related? They're not even flinching. This is before they're like skin and bones and tired. They're not flinching. Oh, he was pumping this through there. You know. And
The fluoride?
so the fluoride, get rid of that is one thing.
And aluminum.
Get rid of aluminum.
In
Your baking
deodorant.
soda, out. They have soda. They have aluminum-free baking soda. I took out the aluminum foil. We no longer use that on baked potatoes. I don't even want it in the drawer.
Really?
My headaches have gone away from the 5G because I got rid of the sodium, or the, aluminum. Yeah, I had headaches like debilitating. I don't have them anymore.
Now, can we use that, if they come to our doors for the vaccines, can we use that legal and travel?
Yes, I would put that on your door. And I put mine in place of my registration on my, I had a, you know, where our registration sticker goes on the left bottom. I had on my Chevy pallet. Now my truck, you'll see it's there because my boyfriend's name's on the truck. He doesn't believe this. He's seen it. He's been with me and he's seen that it works. But anyway, on my Chevy pallet, I didn't have registration with it for 9 months. And now it's expired anyway. But he went and got the damn thing. I didn't want him to. But I got pulled over a couple times. They said, you don't have registration. I go, okay, well, you're very observant. What else? And they're like, well, you have to have one. No. So one of them, I said, well, go read what I've got there. Now, I'm in Bethany, Missouri, and I thought, I'm going to jail because they're awful there. And I even had them on Facebook Live because I was afraid, they were going to take me no matter what. He goes, no, I'm not going to go read that. That's your revoked consent. And so I had it written even more than what he had there. I had another line, a couple lines. And how did he know that? He didn't see it. He was on the other side of the road. So they already had it in their system. You know, you couldn't see that from over here.
Yeah, so he lets you go.
There you go, Jack.
Yeah, let me go.
So he lied to you that he read it?
He's a browser.
No, he said, I'm not going to read it. That's your revoked consent. And they went, well, he'd already been recorded by his car. He had to let me know.
Well, what is looking at here is the system, when you've got your data files that they pull up on the police, is that they will have a marker not to come after you when they know that you know about the lawsuit. So Jody would have already experienced this. Several different people have had it where the police have been tailing someone and they tend to follow for about half a mile and then they just peel off and go off because they check on the system, they do their checks and it says to leave people alone.
Yeah. They've got Lexus.
Do not detain list.
Yeah. They've got it in. I mean, I literally had one guy, I forgot his name, Yvonne. He's in Grapevine. Pulls me over one day and goes, shit. He goes, I wasn't even thinking. Have a nice day. I still don't know what it's for. Goodbye.
You got a different feature.
They wave at me. I'd never wear a seatbelt in Grapevine. Never. I wave at them.
But I've put the 22 to do, Jody. I was going to try and get onto the warden and invite instead, and then so that people can see the importance of the infographs. But can you see the 22 to dos up on screen at the moment?
Hold on. We won't go much longer because they're going to fade. Because there's too much.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
All right, can you guys see
The
that?
important thing about this is people are going to see that it's important to have the infographs so that they've got this information to go through in their own time.
And I could send this
Okay, so this
to Darren to send your email.
The 22 are written out, so you're in a position to go through them and tick them off before you get to your revoked consent.
They're taking pictures, one moment.
Will y'all send this on the internet?
Now, I want to ask him this, for everyone to
See you
hear.
later, Darren.
I've got, and I don't know if you guys know this, but I got Don Huffines that's coming August 3rd. I got him come. So he's gonna be around 12:30 to 2, or
What's he gonna talk about?
whatever we
He's
want.
running for governor, so he's
He's
probably
running for governor.
do his campaign.
Oh, I've got him to speak here on the.
Can we serve him our revocation of consent?
12:30. So, anyway, I saw him in Omaha,
By the way, you
Texas.
have no
I've never heard of
jurisdiction.
Omaha, Texas before, so I looked it up. There was 1,000 people there, and I thought,
By the way, you have.
I'm gonna drive 2.5 hours. There's no way I'm gonna be able to speak to him. There's only 1,000 people, and there's about 24 people. So I got to speak to him. So what I wanted to ask Julian is, when Don Huffines gets here, we need to like kind of together, some of us sporadically, whatever, ask him, because Julian would say, if he's not talking about this, he's not our guy. If he's not talking about naming all capitals, don't you agree? And the birth certificate fraud,
Right.
he's talking about being sovereign, then he's not our guy. But I don't think the other two will either. But we need to come up with some questions, and maybe Julian can help me with some questions for Don, but,
It's August 3rd or August 6th?
or August 3rd at 12:30.
But if I crash through this, put on the 22 to do very quickly. So if anybody needs these infographs, okay, they can contact me on Facebook. Yeah, these ones I've got respect to the library. Jodie's also able to send them to you, and I've got you won't find them anywhere else.
Okay,
So,
I'm
what
sorry?
Jodie's
Yeah, it is.
Okay, what's on the infograph, if you can see, is that what's written in blue is the scriptural terms from regarding storing the law, and also in reference to the finding the treasure and how things happen up regarding what you recognise as personality types. So how we can use thinking across all countries, taking up the two world order, is exactly the same manner.
You're cutting out a little bit.
Sorry, so basically the net, the net that is joining up globally and internationally, like me speaking to you from England, is Jodie will tell you that we've got connections with people that have children back and programs regarding the Swiss banking cartel, and so Sarah, who's in Switzerland, again, a very small individual that literally has done something in Switzerland and got the Zurich head of police tell them that she failed the whole of their system. She had to be taken in the back door because of the upset and the uproar that had been forward amongst their police, not at Sarah, but the fragment that had caused the cleanup that failed the Zurich police single hand using this information. And if anybody would like these, they can pass them later, Jeff, myself and Jodie. And then if I now go back to what we also do is I've got things that I've written out that are worded in what we call when you first get to my
I'll get you guys this,
You,
I'll get it to him, to send an email. So are you putting that one out? That's a good one.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay, this means that when you have somebody approach you, whether it be social work or whether it be authorities, whether it be just these ego complex,
This is a really good one, you're
anything
going
like
to write
that.
down. So
It's so that you've got the term, so that you're or any altercation or interaction is the thing for. So you have.
Oh, you're cutting out. So he's saying, think of that acronym. So when you get pulled over, think of WARDed. So you think witness, do you have a witness, whatever. Advocate, or even if you go to court. Record. Document your evidence, and then notify. So you notify them like after or whatever. I don't know if we lost him. See, without a witness, it says say and answer nothing without one. So that's why when I get pulled over, I've got Facebook Live going or a YouTube channel on at all times. And then if not, if I haven't had that, I'm making a call and I've got someone on the phone. You know, they can hear it on speaker. I'm trying to think, advocate. I am an advocate for a lot of people, like if they're going to jail. I've called up and just say, I know about ADA advocates. I'm not an ADA advocate per se, but I know what an ADA advocate does. But as so-and-so, Melissa Martin from Iowa's advocate that I've been many times, she needs a pen and she needs paperwork, or paper right now, so she can write her writ of habeas corpus to get herself out. Sometimes they're not giving you a paper and pen, right, Glenn? They won't do it. So, but if you call your friends or call the cops up or whoever's running the show, you say, I'm her advocate. I'm his advocate, they need a paper and pen. You can at least do that much for them. You can probably even say they need a Black's Law Dictionary in there with them too. But everyone needs an advocate that's in there. Must have lost it. I don't know. But some videos I'll put on this thing that I've handed out, if you, down here it says watch and order. If you guys watch them in order, you'll catch on fire.
You got more of those, Troy?
Yeah.
Am I back on loudspeaker?
Yeah, go ahead. You want me?
Okay, so the other thing is when you've got the most powerful person in the room, and the police don't like it because you've got a witness who's independent. So you will always find that the police will ask who the other individual is, and they state that they are the advocate. The police, you'll see the police take automatic back step because they can be reported by the advocate, whereas they can't be considered as a friend because an advocate is independent. Okay, so that's a key one to recognise. What Cody was saying about being an advocate is that is if you turn up, you can state that you're a witness, or you can state that you're an advocate. If you state you're an advocate, the police will fear you.
They do. If you state you're an advocate for someone, they go, who are you an advocate for? I just keep saying, for Melissa Martin. I mean, sorry, she's gonna see this video. Melissa Martin. No, who? What for who? I'm just a member of the public, and I'm her advocate. And they back down. If they wanted names and everything, no. So I got her social worker from Webster County, Iowa, to get her out of jail. She got out of jail about 48 hours later and put into a safer house because she felt like she was being burned from the inside out from the 5G that was surrounding the jail. They got her out of there.
Did you get her out just by being an advocate, or did you do a habeas?
Just let me be an advocate. And I just kept raising hell. I called the sheriff. I said, enough is enough. There's people being harmed. I said, the girl that's in the jail with her has scratch marks all down here, and she's never been scratched. She was burning. They were inside burning them. So at least Melissa got out. Yeah, and got to safety. So you can use it that way.
The other thing as well is what Jody's saying. If you look into the Latin of what habeas corpus means, is I don't actually use this, but habeas corpus is what the system recognises because you're using the Latin, or what's known as dog Latin term of habeas corpus, which means bring forward the body. So if you're, what you're saying is if I'm dead, then there won't be a body. So when you say habeas corpus, you're saying bring forward the body, because if I'm deemed dead, lost at sea, then you're saying here is my body. So it means they know that you know about the deemed dead at sea status, and so they release you because you're stating habeas corpus. Corpus meaning the word corpse for body.
So you can use it, but in that case with Melissa, I only had to use being an advocate, and it got her the help she needed. Because she clearly did something bad. She clearly did, so I wasn't going to help her with some other stuff, but I got her to a safe place.
The key thing that Jody's kind of not explaining too well, Jody's kind of got used to it now, but on your part, what they're asking her questions about is what organisation does she come from, because they would like to know how safe they are, because they'd like to know that she comes from a legal background or some company that's got a Freemason connected to it, so that they can see that their indemnity is still there. As soon as Jody says, I'm a member of the public and I'm an advocate, and more importantly, if she says, I'm part of the public inquiry, they know they're in trouble.
And I do that on
So
my
you've literally got-
open records request too. I
you've
said, this is
got
a
the
public
feminist.
inquiry, according according to the governor.
Jody, can you quickly put up the invite one? I've just dropped off the invite one.
Oh, yeah. You guys see that? Okay. Oh, what the heck? I don't know what happened.
You go to Julian's Facebook page and stuff, find the shoes is on the stage.
Hold on now. We'll make this be the last one.
Oh,
I don't know what happened.
no, I don't know either, just can't quite.
Okay. Let's make this be the
Okay,
last
so-
one.
Yep, so in the same bag, in fact, backwards you've got the more than one. In this one, equally, there are things that you need to know that the police and the authorities have got regarding your property. So things like, okay, the important thing to recognise here is the fact that the post office are the highest ranking authority, without people realising it's actually on the same terms as military. So when you've got what's called a postmaster general, from who's in regarding the post office, the more you look at it, the more you'll find that the post office means they've got access onto your authority by having the right to deliver your mail. So in America it's not too bad because you tend to have boxes that are on the outer edge of your property. And in the UK we have letter boxes on the front of your house. I've had to take my letterbox off and put a metal plaque over the front of the door, which means the police have got no jurisdiction on my property whatsoever because I've put that plaque over the letterbox. You've got a letterbox, which means they have to enter your property to deliver your mail. It means they have got a jurisdiction on your land just purely by the fact of the post office. So what we've got now is an invite. This works equally on the fact if you're being psychologically abused, works on the level, on the spiritual prophecy level, is it means that no darkness can come to get you. If you're on a narrow straight gate and doing everything correctly, they have to have invite, which is the same as the legal entrapment, same as the deceived consent. Okay, and by you stating yourself as being human in law, they have to now create an invite. So what we say is you don't open a door, you speak to people through the window. Even better than that is to get a camera, go out of your back door and record them on your property as if you were stood out the front of your property, recording them on your property, then address them who you are, with there being your neighbours watching. And again, what you've done is you've turned the system round on them because they're hoping to catch you indoors, for you to open the door and then to put their foot in the door, because if you turn your back on them to go and get your ID card with your door open, they consider that as deemed invite and they can push their way into your house and come in after your children, your property and so forth.
That's how most parents that lost the CPS, that's how they lost them, turning their back and having the door open. Yeah.
Now, the other thing is people that have gone through being in positions that they find they're always losing out, they've had narcissistic abuse, they've had authority abuse, they've been in care or things like that, is they won't recognise they've got what's called blind spots. Okay? If you start to recognise this pattern of how they always do what is termed in the list, I won't go through it because of the time loss, but basically it's that they have to go through this system to exploit you on any level, whether it be take something from you financially, property-wise or anything like that. This is to get you in the position of recognising it and get yourself out of that situation as quickly as possible, and using the techniques at the bottom to remove any deemed consent, deceived consent or jurisdiction. Okay? If you've got a pen handy, I would write down the word acquiesce. Okay, okay, and it's spelled with a Q. I'm not very good at spelling it, so I'll let you Google it as a good way to reinforce it. Okay, is the word acquiesce is really important because it means you don't, if you say that you didn't agree to something, it would mean that they've informed you to be able to agree it. So for consent, if I was going to come around and put into your house to take your TV, okay, if I hadn't told you I was coming to do it and I did it, if you said that I didn't consent, you would be tripping yourself up by stating that you didn't consent, which means you didn't let them do it. You didn't agree to let them do it, but it means you knew that they did it. If you were to say I didn't acquiesce, it would mean you didn't know and you hadn't been warned, you were never told they did something by deception. So to say I acquiesce means the severity of what you're reporting is noted and it can't be spun back on that you consented or it was deceived consent. So if you state I do not contact, I do not consent, and I do not acquiesce, it means no one can drop something on you without your prior knowledge.
Consent, contact, action. So you could put that on your legal entrapment card if you're gonna put that on your door, those three things. And I would say with any corporation, entity, agency, just list a whole bunch of...
You wouldn't put acquiesce on your legal entrapment card because someone's reading it, which means you're aware of what they're doing.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Okay, so it would be on your revoked consent. It wouldn't be on your legal entrapment card.
Okay. So disregard that. Yeah. Okay, you want him to read that. What he's saying.
You don't want to.
You don't want to acquiesce on the legal entrapment, you want on the public, or the revoked consent. That basically you're giving to the sheriff, to the governor, to the secretary of state, to Judge Whitley.
The best example of what acquiesce would be if your local bank, and this is globally, what happened in 2018, the corporations and central banks made it so that all bank accounts were given a backdoor access so that a corporation can take money from your bank account without you being aware. If you write a letter to the bank and state that you do not consent, you do not contract, or you do not acquiesce, it means if nobody tells you about it and they go to empty your trust account, or the bank don't tell you that this access is there, it means you've now closed the door without them letting you know that the backdoor access was created. But acquiesce would mean I am not allowing anything that you don't tell me about.
That might be good if they're doing Jasara and Asara, that we send that to the bank president.
Everybody needs to do it on the basis of their own bank account anyway, because it means you're taking control over your bank account and preventing corporate control over your bank account.
You guys got any? I know it's a lot.
I can't even
If you watch that first video that I've got down below where it says watch, there's one called Meet Your Straw Man, it's 5 minutes and 17 seconds. You're gonna have to watch these over and over because the cognitive dissonance we all have is so thick. We've been brainwashed for so long. So you gotta, it's gonna take a while. But watch that over and over.
Okay. Yep. The other thing as well, if there's anybody that is serious about not just learning this, but that on a simple basis, anybody that's interested in learning to teach in the same way that Jody does, then I'm more than happy to go through this with anybody that's got like major problems or they're looking to advance it so that they're looking to teach others. And again, it's I don't charge anything, and I would prefer if anybody learning this didn't charge and it was a pass it forward basis.
All right, I'll give him you guys got his name, Julian Coulter. So he doesn't really accept friend requests, so to speak. He'd rather you just PM him, private message. And then he'll send you a whole library, like Ben's if you're on there. He'll send you his whole library that has things like this.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm agreeing with
I'm
Jody.
telling you, this is like what I've been looking for. This is what I've been looking for, you know, I mean,
Just so in front of
because
Jody.
I've hit all around this, and I was just talking with Glenn about some of the things that I've experienced along the way. You know,
Glenn, you got any questions?
No, he's right on the money. The only thing I would say, as far as when they come to your door, is number one, I have the door locked at all times, even when I'm home.
Right.
Because if you don't, they'll try the door, and if it's not locked, they'll walk in and you let them in.
yeah.
And so I have the door locked at all times. I wouldn't even answer the door, quite frankly. If they have a real warrant, they'll break the door down,
Right,
and otherwise they'll just go away.
yeah. Now Julian had something recently, like, was it 2 weeks ago, Julian, where they broke through his fence, and he watched them do it. It was I think a zip tie, wasn't it? Julian?
Yeah, I have a really thin zip tie, so they cost less than 1p each, and then I put a zip tie on the fence, which means they have to break it to open the gate, and then it then means they've done criminal damage, and it doesn't make a difference how much it costs. It's criminal damage because they've broken into the property, and so I catch them off guard on a criminal damage basis, and they were straight on the back foot. This was actually terrorist police coming to question me because I've put the dates down for their next terrorist attack dates that I've decoded for their Freemason things like 9/11. So it looks as if we've scuppered something being done at Wembley football arena. And so because I put out the dates that to watch out for a terrorist attack date to do with Wembley, is they came and tried to do questions on the basis of saying I've been watching Muslim extremist videos. And then tried to cause an upset with this was going to cause a divide with my neighbours, but my neighbours all asked me the codes of what's going to happen on the next event, so all my neighbours are awake and they're all involved in it as well.
Woohoo!
What's gonna happen?
What's the next big date? They want to know.
But it could actually be that we've already found what's gone on with the 16th. We've just had it, and Jodie's just received this. They've just started putting out what's known as the secret covenant, which is to cause a bigger drive of fear through people in regarding speaking out. They've just delivered that, but on the we've got the 16th, the 19th. The 19th is the big one. And that's then in reference to that, we might have already found that that's the going into permanent lockdown. So the UK is meant to come out of lockdown. It's actually what's known as Tisha B'Av in Hebrew, which is the reference to the two temples being taken down or destroyed in Jerusalem from David and Solomon's temples. And then the reference to it is also the day of where they say the Jews, but the tribe of Judah were removed from France in 1306. On our part, by the codings, it appears that this is now the big date where the temple being seen as the people and the people of God rather than the buildings. As it means it's in the same way as the temple was destroyed before. July the 19th appears to be the date where they've got their ultimate date of the temple or the people can now be destroyed from July the 19th.
Wow. What do you think about
We're
this?
expecting.
Go ahead.
Cyber attacks are due from the 18th of August because of the 33 days after the 9th of July event of what was called the Polygon cyber simulation attack. So we're expecting from the 18th more cyber attacks that were similar to the one you had down on the west coast of the United States. So that's expected to be more involved. And then there's several dates now leading up to the 11th of November, which again is another big significant date. And there's going to be more events in lining things up regarding variants and the death tolls to cover what's happening regarding the vaccine.
What do you make of this Delta variant? That was the question Jason had earlier.
But that one, it's been they've put through the 3 other variants to get to the 4th version, so that you've got on the Delta. If you look at the Delta sign, the delta sign is the triangle in line with the pyramid, the all-seeing eye, and the reference to that. So that's the key one, and hence why they've moved it to the Greek. So you've also got the reference to the Greek translation, Greek and Latin translation, which are the two corruptions, again, through prophecy, which is why you've got the name Jesus comes from Greek and Latin instead of Yeshua, which is the straight through the gate to the evidence and straight to the truth for Yeshua.
And then the number of people they want us to have left, you had that number, I believe.
The figures that you've caught me on the hop. I'll have to look through the legal.com. Hold on. It's as in global figures. They're looking at getting down to 500 million, which means losing 7.2 billion people globally. The Deagle.com figures work on the basis of, hold on, let me get it, because I'll actually put it up. I keep forgetting you've got it there.
Pardon me.
And when I put it up, I couldn't find the number.
Is that primarily for the vaccinations that reduce it down to that number?
Is that primary from the vaccinations, or is that including food shortage and all that?
No, it's the overall that they're going to be including food shortages, water shortages. The reference that we've got now is that they pulled the plug on the agricultural cropping. So if you think of it as a conveyor belt and it closing down, the produce to be able to grow the grain for next year and being reduced down means that we're going to get hit by 2002 for water shortages and water pollution, and 2023 for for food shortages. You need to consider with that as well. That's already with vaccination death losses. As you can see that there's enough food for everybody at the moment. For them to lose half the population would mean doubling the food. So it means to get to the point where there's a lack of food for the depopulated level means it has to be extreme.
What's the time frame if they want to get down to the 500 million?
You hear that?
Sorry?
What's the time frame they want to get down to the 500 million? Don?
The main part we've got, the Georgia Guidestones is slightly different on their one. Their one is for the next American eclipse. So the period is between the two American eclipses, because it's all to do with sun worship. So the American eclipses that produce the X and produce the where the X crosses where it goes to Cairo. The second line, which is the 8th of April of 2024. That's when they're looking to get the population down to 500 million.
What was it then?
By that time.
500 million by when again?
8th of April, 2024.
April the 8th, 2024.
So what do you think we can do? I mean, what do you think we can do in here with what little we got here to help stop this? Make it less. Everything. But Jody will tell you it was frustrating in the first place because getting other people to listen, first 6 months, where she would be pouring her heart out to me because she didn't think things were working, she didn't think anyone was reading the leaflets, and I was saying, no, we've got to recognise, Jody, you putting the leaflets out means you've woken up. She's now had it where the circulatory piece, she's bumped into someone who started up an organisation and then found out that they got the information from her in the first place. That was Tiffany.
So it's
got it somewhere else on a bulletin board when I went to hand it to her.
Yeah.
She was up in our house. So it circulated. Yeah.
Well, and it's going on my YouTube channel with 30,000 subscribers.
Oh, yeah. Glenn's got 30,000. He's got 30,000 subscribers that he's videoing this for.
on my YouTube
Cool.
channel.
Yes.
Excellent. Jodie, I've put the deagle.com infograph up. I say infograph, it's actually a screenshot of the actual, what we did is we did a little experiment going back so that we were aware that they would do something on the terms of not getting the information out. So what we did is I had different people from different countries access deagle.com to get the figures. These are the 2017 figures that they had and they've got. So what you've got on screen at the moment is these are the figures for America. And it's showing that the population in 2017 was 327 million. It gives the population density as in there is, I think it's 3.3, isn't it? Oh, 33 inhabitants per square kilometre. And if you look down, it gives the forecast for 2025 is 100 million. So it means by 2025, bearing in mind that they're looking to do population dilution, which means have people who aren't from the country originally as well, including the exchange, they're looking to get rid of 227 million people from the United States.
You said 227 million?
Yeah, because in
There's only
2017, there was 327 million.
Oh, I thought it was around almost 2 out of it. Yeah, it's serious. Good.
About 2/3, right?
By April 8th of 2024?
2020, well, this is 2025. For that.
And bear in mind that's also with the exchange. That's with the exchange of population as well.
Yeah, we don't really know what our
So
population
it's
is.
going to
There's so many people.
make more sense as to why they've had this open border issue of
Yeah.
doing exchanges of people, because what they don't want is they don't want American patriots in America to be a threat to what gets set up.
Hence, they're making you the enemy. Chad Wolf said it under Trump.
Because there's been about 10 million illegals that have come in just during the Biden administration. 10 million.
10 million?
Yeah.
I guess they want to make it so we're not going, wait, there's no one around here anymore.
Yeah.
Changing America.
Because now when we go to the state fair, we're still going to see the same amount because all the illegals.
The other thing as well is, and you've already had one experience of this, of where they invaded the Capitol and they staged it, so you literally had your Antifa Freemasons staged invasion where they let the building in, and you've got the guys in the videos who are shouting at the police who are stood to the side going, you've got to stop this, you've got to stop this, and they then run through and do the Capitol. So that it was the case of let's turn the people against the government and get them used to this thing of like, yeah, we need to overturn the government, which is exactly what the New World Order needs, because if you don't have a government, then you've got no one to complain to and get things put in place, which means you then rely completely on the United Nations.
So do you think that we're going to have domestic, like a civil war, and then they're going to call in the UN to control things?
Yep.
Because we're not going to have any police force left.
The big thing that people kind of underestimate is if you consider the fact that you've got a generation of people who are game addicts, sugar addicts, alcohol addicts, cigarette addicts. That means if they cut the power of the internet, they take the sugar out of the diet system, they stop producing alcohol and stop producing cigarettes and tobacco, is that the whole emphasis of the public attacking the public for just those things is going to be huge. That's without the vaccination.
Will the starvation start next spring, since they're reducing the water that they could use for, doing vegetation? Will that start immediately?
Sorry.
He wants to know when
Can you say it a little bit slower?
When will we start seeing starvation in the United States? Will that be next spring, or when do you foresee that happening? When we have?
I see that happening. I think by around I wouldn't call it starvation. I think you'll start to see there being less food. There'll be less food being thinned out. I think you'll see before summer of next year. The greater part is you'll notice it's things like Bill Gates buying up the land and the agriculture. They're making it so that the farmers that have got the computers that run the large combine harvesters and stuff like that is all the software breakdowns that are being done regarding that. If you think of cyber attacks and cyber control, it means these large kind of agricultural vehicles can't be used, but you've got people sort of are stuck with like multi-million-pound vehicles that they can't use because of the software is designed to break down on them. So you've got all of those different things. That's already started. Plus, you'll see there's multiple things of where they do what a reference to Baal fires. So it's Baal sacrifice fires of large food corporations. So the food corporations that do this, they have a fire. That means they don't get up and running again for 3 to 4 years. But that's their big insurance incentive to burn their own place.
Speaking of fires, were all the fires we have had in the past, land fires, I thought they were real suspicious to me early on.
Yeah. I don't trust
Yeah,
anything.
it's called DEW, as in DEW, direct energy weapons. They've had them for many years. I've had a direct conversation with one of the guys that was initiated in creating them back in the 1960s. They even used green and common protesters to test and make them to see if they could make them ill after 3 days, knowing that they would probably come down with more critical illness 3 to 4 months later. So they were using them back in the 50s and 60s.
Well,
basically, your microwave oven has got the same technology in it that they had as weapons back in the 50s and 60s.
Are they going to shut down the internet?
I don't think that they will shut it down on the level that people consider. People's ability to log on to it will be affected. So that there will be a case of what they provide for themselves in the meantime is going to be up and running and operational. But when it comes to the crunch, then yes.
Julian, I tend to look at this as the worst case scenario, because if we have what I've been informed with military coming back, and perhaps our commander-in-chief being acknowledged, Trump, wouldn't these numbers then perhaps be reduced?
Did you understand that?
Would the numbers be what?
Okay, she's under the impression, like some are here, that the military's gonna come back. Like, are you talking about Biden bringing people back?
No.
Or build up?
Military.
Military's gonna build up, Trump's coming back, and
Good guys.
she's saying this is the worst case scenario, because if Trump comes back, that this number of deduction will be reduced. Am I saying that right? What do you have to say about that?
What I can tell you is all of the code of Trump, the gate file was put up regarding Trump's own tap of fire in his own cover. The reference to him signing Sunday law just before they did the event. Trump's codes, including the codes, the Paradise fires that came from his emergency text, show that Trump is and has always been New World Order. It was bailed out and incorporated by the Rothschilds years ago. Even his birthday is coded. He's even orange because it's depicted by what's called tango advert in the UK, which means you've been tangoed, which means you've been surprised. But even the fact of his orange colour to his skin is literally mocking the population. Until you know the English part of it, to see they cross everything backwards and forwards. Trump is all involved, and his reference to draining the swamp is the swamp was the population.
You're saying he's the New World Order?
Because he's the one that they're upset about. He's the one that's changing things.
Take the shot.
Why would he be the New World Order?
It's called control. It's called controlled opposition. You're watching a stage show, which means they're all involved. They're just playing their different parts, the same as you would be watching a soap opera. The longer you keep watching, and you'll see that everything to do with Jassara and Nasara, Trump pushing for the vaccinations is because mentally you don't like the thought that you've got to do something. Everybody sits and waits and work on the basis of he's going to do something, he's going to do something. The whole Q operation, each of the Q drops, the very first Q drops, I've got all of the coded dates, and the first Q drop was done in sync 20,000 days after JFK was killed, and JFK's assassination was also a facade, same as Lincoln's. So if you do the 13 checks between the things that match between Lincoln's assassination and Kennedy's assassination, you'll see that will let you know that that was all mock, because literally every presidency has been like watching a stage show.
Yeah, but Trump was the only one that was totally different. When he went to those global meetings, all the other leaders were out to get him. He was going against the grain. Why would they want him to be in at all at any time to delay it? They'd want somebody else like the Clintons to have won, and it would be a lot further ahead in the game. Why would they make Trump to be there?
And the only reason he supported this getting this vaccine going, because he was like the rest of us, we thought there was a real problem. I really think he was very innocent in this. And he was being a good guy.
The part you're talking about, one second,
Right.
one second, Julian, the part you're talking about.
If I can just point something out to you, okay?
I see where you're coming from, but you want to have like a stage.
Anybody that would be on your side, anyone that would be on your side, okay, would know the information and would put out the public information about the Set We Pay the Act. Because what I'm saying to you is, if the New World Order cannot be taken down unless everybody knows about it, if the individuals you're talking about haven't told you about the Set We Pay the Act, then they are the adversary. It's that simple. Jodie would tell you she had her own problems, and she did a whole basis of months of where I said, okay, Jodie, let's agree to disagree. And Jodie would tell you that she found it really annoying because it was a case, Julian was right again, Julian was right again, Julian was right again, Julian was right again, until eventually she came to the realisation
He told me about
she
the
was holding
pandemic
on
about
to
4 months before you guys knew. I started hoarding food because he told me about it's coming.
Yeah. Well, Jane, all I'm saying is that with Trump, he was against the grain, and I realize that it could have been a setup, so you think that there's a choice, they're giving you a choice, but I think Trump was really very...
On my side of things, on my side of things, I've put out the codes of the things that Trump's going to do, and the gate of Baal, being on 26th, okay, in between Washington Pillar and the column, all to do with the Kavanaugh ruse. All of those impeachments are all on coded dates. Jodie would tell you on the side of things, when I say there's a coded date and something's going to happen, is if the codes have been up and Trump's codes all came in for his impeachment, all of those different things that people are sitting there going, oh, this happened, that happened. And I said to Jodie right from the start, you're watching a stage show, and Jodie didn't like to believe it to start with, but came to the thing of, I'm seeing it now, okay, I'm seeing it with my own eyes.
So if you want to know this more, I think Glenn put up what Julian talked about last week, which might help you. Is that on your?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube. This will be on my YouTube.
For the sovereign living.
Yeah.
You put all those two words together on YouTube, and then that'll help you with your question on Trump.
So Julian, was it on the agenda that Trump should have won? That was all planned. That was all staged to let him win for one term, and then let it go to Biden. All that's already been planned.
All presidents are staged. Jodie's got a friend called Meredith, and she actually went through literally all of the different presidencies. There's one president who's actually had two separate presidents with one gap in between, and it even means that the numbers of Trump being, I think, the 45th means he's not the 45th president, he's actually the 44th, and it means that was the upset between everyone saying that because Obama was the 44th, that he was going to be anti-Messiah. They did a very little clever trick with having one, I think his name might have been Warwick or something like that, beginning with W, around, and basically he had presidency, there was a short term of somebody else in, and then he came back in as president, which means he technically made it, everybody dropped one president number down,
What
but
year-
Trump is the 44th president.
What year was that, that short, brief president that was not part of the?
I couldn't tell you. Put it this way, it takes less than 5 minutes for you to have a look, to sit there and go through the presidency, look through the day terms, and you'll see even the day terms is coded, so it's like a 2242, and then if you go through, you'll see that not just one of the deaths and assassinations, you'll see there's things like the president who came after Lincoln and the president who came after the JFK have got corresponding names like Johnson and things like that. You see, there's a whole pattern that the more you look at it, the more it stands out.
Okay. Is there anything that we can do to slow this situation with the amount of people being killed? Can we slow it down, or is it going to just happen?
You can literally do everything just by passing on the news of the Secretary KV to restoring law, to doing literally what Jodi's doing and making the change. And this is the thing, the police, it will plough the police, but what it will do is it will get rid of the corrupt police, because what you'll do is you'll end up with law enforcement instead of legal fraud corporates, and you'll have then the authorities. It will change, but it's going to destroy the system. It's going to be tribulations, but the difference is between the tribulations that you come through is the damage limitation that you have for you and for good people by what you do.
Julian, is there any faction of the military or anybody out there that's on our side?
Can you answer that?
Is there any, the U.S.
Is there any what, sorry?
Is there any faction of the military at all that's on our side, we the people side?
Yeah, 50% of the people in it, and this is on your part. This is the good news. Okay, empathic people who are the people who are the military. Okay, are your boots on the ground infantry, and the thing is they've been lied to. They're the people who have been exploited. You've got vets who are really upset at the ex-vets who are left out homeless on the street and mistreated, not realising that the reason that they're out there is because they need to be discredited, because they can't have the story of what they experienced, that they never found any weapons of mass destruction. All of this is rife going through the military. So you're going to have this same cloud effect that we just spoke about with the police will be through the military as well. So you will have military fighting with military. You're going to have US Army who sit there and become patriotic against the UN that they recognise is New World Order. And then you're going to have literally the people who are selfish, the people who are trying to save themselves. So these fractions will even be going on between military and military.
Jason's got a
Literally, as it
question.
says in Scripture. But
Jason's got a question.
literally, where it says in Scripture, where there'll be two laid in bed and only one will return. There'll be two men out in the field and only one will return. Two women by the grinding stone and only one will return. Because this is going to have fractions between best friends, partnerships, people that work together in every field.
We've already experienced that in families and on our jobs and between masked versus unmasked.
Truly I say to you, your enemies will be people of your own household.
That's the dynamic, but it's recognising it will escalate to the point where people will be killing each other.
So
Yes.
Julian, do you think the September 1st number keeps coming up, or date keeps coming up? I don't know if that's for FDA approval for the vaccine or the non-vaccine, whatever you want to call it. And they're talking about giving it to the military. Do you think that's to disable our military to have occupying force come in at some point?
Yeah. Their thing is they're looking to disable everything and go and hide and to sit it out and hope that they survive afterwards. Jodi's literally got what I sent her yesterday. This secret covenant is a four image infograph which lists. If you go onto YouTube, there's several videos of people who verse it. It's just called the Secret Covenant. And it tells you what their plans were. It's their secret covenant. It tells you it says about the blood sacrifices, that no one, if anybody speaks of this who's involved, that they will be killed. Anybody who stands out like a light will be ridiculed or killed, whichever to their benefit more. All of those different things.
Well, and it really concerns me that it has been in the news by Biden, that he wants Texas to have 70% coverage of this stupid vaccine. Texas. Is he doing that to
Well,
any
he's
other
already declared up in
states?
war.
Well, when there was a speaker, I don't think they're called Speaker of the House, Glenn might know the answer to that. But when Jim Jordan, the senator, US senator, was saying, what's the number, Fauci, what's the number before we can get back? And the speaker at that Senate committee, whatever, said when 90% of the US Congress people take it. That's what means to me, 90% of the US Congress is 90% of us. Right?
Right, if I can point something out to you, this is something you can Google and you can check yourself. Biden has just done a code in complete dysfunctional value where he clearly stated that he got into the politics 180 years ago. It said on the record it's done in a way that it's done to make him look stupid. I went, thanks very much, there's the code I need, 180. So I took the Freemasonic codes by what he said. People would view that as that's a very concerning, he's obviously suffering from dementia. The people who are away be going, he's completely dysfunctional. Can't you see to everybody else that he's, and it's literally like watching The Muppet Show or Sesame Street. It's no different. You're watching a show and they're putting the codes in the show.
We talked a little bit last week about the mark of the beast. What did you say the mark of the beast was from last week?
What did you say?
The mark of the beast is yet to come. The mark of the beast is yet to come because you're going to have this thing of people who can't do profiling of narcissistic and empathic or altruistic, and so the referencing to the people who will have the mark on them, so they can be identified to each other, and so that if there is no uniform, it will mean your uniform is going to be the equivalent of the mark that you take, as in you're either satanic or you're going to be carrying the seal of Abba, as in God, our creator of the Bible.
Is that a mark on the body or is it like a certificate?
It will be the equivalent of like a tattoo and of one or the other.
Wouldn't it be the
That's what will be the real mark. And the thing is that if you go through all the different stuff like the barcode and stuff like that, there's several things that keep everybody arguing about it. And this the thing is, whilst everyone's arguing about that, they could have been learning what you've learned today to restore the law and to make the change that's needed.
Really?
So I got a question. He's not here today. The one that's not here said that what I'm doing by exposing this, and I've exposed it all the way to Iowa, New Jersey, and up to Maine by myself, 11,000 flyers there, and then recently Iowa to Washington State, down through Salt Lake City and back just recently. So I've got over 14,000 flyers for public notice like you've got. He's got thousands, Sarah's got thousands in Switzerland. What I was told and have being told by people around here, this isn't important, Julian, only the vaccination is important. And I'm trying to get it to these people's heads. This is all important. The family court stuff, severing our families, because I know for damn sure my 4 children that were severed from me would not be taking this. Now I believe probably 3 out of 4 will, because of who they're with. They're with a narcissistic one. So to me, it's all important. There's not one more important than the other. What do you say to that? I probably lost it.
Is he there?
Julian? I'm going to call her that. So, that's what I get. Everyone's saying it's not important.
Well,
I think all of it's important.
Oh, yeah,
All
absolutely.
of every, like you said,
Every
you
bit
gotta
of
do
it's
every
important.
summer.
It's all connected.
So like my public notice talks about the 5G, the name in all caps, the Title IV funding, the vaccine. I had it on the front and then I flipped it and I thought, okay, people aren't happy with this. Now I'm gonna put about more of the vaccine on the back.
It's all connected.
Yeah, that's what I believe, too.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Says it's in another call.
What?
Says it's in another call.
Except,
You click accept, yeah.
Oh, I guess he was trying to call you or something.
Are you there?
what happened, he switched back over to call you. Y'all were both, you were calling him, he was doing the other interview.
Crap.
Were you asking, when does he think the planes are gonna start falling?
Yeah. Whenever the pilots
Yeah.
are taken and they die from it.
Yeah, we need to make sure we got 3
My
pilots.
prayers.
Yeah,
I know, we'll do like
On it.
vaccinated or
I
unvaccinated.
just
You
don't
need to
want them to be
Under
alone.
60. Like, you know, because now,
Yeah,
they
they
won't
get blood
let,
clots.
they won't let us 62-year-olds fly together. One has to be under 60 because, yeah. Did you know that? I didn't know if you knew that, Kelly. Did you know that? Yeah. If you're
I need
under
to
60.
interview.
Oh, and Sophie's too.
Ask them if they're thinking it's real clear today for the, get on the plane.
I asked him.
You feel good?
I always ask him how hard it is for me to land this thing.
You feeling lucky?
That's what I
If you
asked.
feel like you're not quite there, let's all do it.
Most of them are vaccinated.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Hello?
I just go, you are not making.
But,
Okay, did you hear what I said?
yeah,
I get.
yeah, I could hear you fine. Yeah, so that's fine, I've heard it.
Okay. So I
Okay.
get either
Fine.
made fun of or dismissed for what I'm saying and it's all connected.
Who's not vaccinated? Wait.
It doesn't make, this is the thing, on your part, it doesn't make any difference if you're dismissed. What it means is you've got to dismiss the people who are dismissing you, just find the people who do listen.
That's right.
Because it literally is a numbers game.
That's
This is
right.
where your leaflets are absolutely crucial. Someone who ignores your leaflet and leaves it on the side, I sit there and go, great, because it means that someone else will come, and the person who picks it up is the person who will read it and take it and look into it. So there is no negatives to people being dismissive. Okay. What I will say is the key question to this is for those people, and this is the conversation stopper, is you say, without a lawsuit against these corporations, because you now know the law outdoes legal every time, is how are you going to stop these corporations without the law?
Okay, we got another question.
The great
And that's it.
currency, the great
Wait, one
currency
second.
reset, how's that figure in this?
How's the currency reset fit into all this?
The currency reset, there's several different things that people need to be aware of in what's been done deliberately regarding central banking and the move to the central banks for China and the re-establishment of Kazakhstan as the next superpower in regards to lithium mines and stuff like that. And the key thing for this is people don't know how the gold got from America and Fort Knox over to China, and this is where Bill Gates came in, because what they were doing is they were basically producing processors for computers, and the old 486 and 386 processors had 33 grams of gold, as in the 33, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, had 33 grams of gold in. So if you've got somebody who can Google it and just double check and hold it up to everybody else, there was 33 grams per processor put into the processors. And when they did the whole changeover to who's going to be producing the new processors, and China became the big processors, they took the scrap processors over to China, which meant they were shifting the gold per processor from the old processors, as everyone got rid of them because they had to get the 586, then the Pentium, and people who were computer minded knew that they kept changing the processors over. That was all about shifting the gold over to China.
Wow.
And there has been no monetary backing of finances in gold. In particular, 1971 was the key moment. There'll be several different points of where there's people will say about it was 1933, but the key one was 1971 regarding the gold backing, and even to the point of where the promissory notes system, they even put a gap between where the banks used to say the bank will pay the holder of the money, and they changed it and put a gap in, so it says basically now whoever's got the note owes the person the money. You've got a promissory note, nothing else. So the financial side of things means everything's been floating for them to ditch it since 1971 particularly. The whole thing of getting it to go into virtual currency means it was even more difficult to establish who had what backed what, and so the whole fallacy thing of payment means there was no wealth that we've been working for. Everything has been a construct, and all they've concentrated on is the bond equity and the payments of that, and that's how people have really got rich, whereas other people have been chasing the equivalent of a $20 note on the back of somebody else, because who pays who keeps that circle going.
Will there be a currency though that'll be worldwide, where, in other words, you can turn in whatever you have in yens, and they'll give you?
This is the thing. The main thing is that you know about what's called the Phoenix coin, which is known as, I think, as the PXC, and it was put on the Economist magazine in 1988 with a coin hanging, a medallion around the phoenix bird with the tricolor of the 3 crowns on the bird's head, and stating, it says the Phoenix coin 2018, and that was put in print in 1988. And I got the document and copied it. The moment it started, literally split seconds, so the Phoenix coin was at 0.00 in 1918 on the January the 2nd, if I remember rightly. And that was done 30 years to the day, and they put that out as a virtual currency in 1988. That shows you how planned virtual currency and what's going to take place was all out. It was done with a 30-year advance on the Economist.
Is that coin available on the blockchain?
Sorry, say that again?
Can you purchase that on the blockchain? Is it a cryptocurrency?
Yeah. Yep, it's up and running, just no one really knows about it unless they're involved in the deep part of the corruption. I would just be very careful. Again, it would be the same as your revoked consent, is I would get people knowing what you're doing, know all about it. To blow it out of the water is the best thing to do is publicise it. I've explained to Jody I could be a multi-billionaire with the information that I've got, with everything up front, but I could guarantee, it would be guaranteed that one, I would be in a box anyway, because I wouldn't be doing what I was meant to be doing. But the system would allow me to become rich, to make sure that I was an example to anybody else that found out the information that I got.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Did he answer your question?
Well, I was waiting, because I know Europe is in financial strain, and we keep hearing that the currency reset is going to help Europe out as well as some of our banking. But I didn't quite understand.
You heard that. Say it again.
The European nations, especially, or financial bankruptcy per se, and they're waiting
Can you come a little closer? I can't hear him.
In other words, he's asking if there's going to be a jubilee. Are they going to forgive us of our debts and issue new currency? Do you believe there's going to be a worldwide jubilee?
Currency reset.
There already has been, and it was announced by the Vatican back in 2020. I think it was in September of 2020, where they did their declaration to that property is no longer owned by, so you don't own your property. People don't recognise the paperwork's already been done on it, so everyone's doing the, okay, well, what are they going to do then? And then recognising is what I've been telling everyone for the last 10 years, that that they don't own their property because of the naming capital. So everyone's sitting there waiting for something to happen, not realising it was done, and then it was announced in 2018.
I heard there was two countries that got their debts paid off recently. Bulgaria
I think they were two South American countries.
Two South American countries.
It says, it was San Salvador too.
San Salvador,
Yeah,
that's
there are two countries that had Jubilee.
San Salvador.
And if you go look on the internet, you'll see people celebrating that they don't have any debts.
But there's been several. The main thing I would say to focus on, and what they don't want people to work out is what is a biblical jubilee, which is where not only is there a reset, but there is a reset where the shares that we're talking about that comes through on the birth certificate is reshared out as in what was a scriptural jubilee, which is every 49 years it's called for. The jubilee is the 50th year. All debts are reset, everything profit-wise is all taken back in, and everyone is given an equal share. So you never get a tyrannical central banking, one family owns everything, ever developing. That's the one thing that they fear regarding that financial part of the law. And it's what's known as a Shemitah, and what I call a super Shemitah for the 49th year, and then that's the Jubilee for the 50th.
One last question.
She's got another, hold on, one more.
Is there a difference between revaluation of the dong or dinar versus the great reset that you guys are talking about?
You understand that?
Is that
Is there
sorry,
a
I didn't
difference?
but
Is there a difference between the value?
The revaluation that's expected for some currencies like the Vietnamese dong, the Iraqi dinar, Indonesia rupiah versus the great reset that you're talking about.
Yeah. Is there a difference between those two things?
yeah, there is no difference. It's just called different names, and different countries have got. Everyone's recognising that it was already preset. It's literally like everyone's being separated down into their different gutters of how they're going to collapse. So that that's all prefabricated as well.
You want to clarify that for us?
That's the reference to where COVID has been significant, and for the first time ever, you've had central banks saying what their plans are regarding COVID in advance for that exact reason.
I don't understand. You need to clarify what
Can you
you're talking
clarify
about.
it a little better on the reset? The reset.
See, it's kind of a vague term because the central banks right now are hurting, but then is this all planned anyway, so it'll just make us more in bondage? Is it all just planned this right now that they truly are in debt?
The dates for this, if you consider that the virus was set in 1555, the American Independence Day and the amount of days to it was 88,888 days to the virus being released in Wuhan. All of that is all set on their predetermined dates and numbers for these different things, which are being ticked forward like a slow one tick at a time rate. So each different thing is already preset, and they've been working to it for centuries. So it's centuries of plans clicked into a 120-year date, and you're just seeing what's happened in this decade, not seeing it's all preset before.
But what's the end game? Is it going to be chaotic if we don't have our currency that'll have any value? In other words, dollars won't mean anything. So is it designed that way where we just start bartering things and use gold and silver? Are they wanting us to do that? Or
if you think of it as on their part, they've got their staircase, and the main part they've got their staircase for 2030. That's probably the easiest way for you to think on it. And there are several steps that are worked in on that. And the part where the people are going to know about this is most people are going to have clicked onto this because they're making it obvious by 11/11 of this year.
okay.
What's known as Agenda 20, what's known as Agenda 21, when it kicks. And that's another big severe date for the 31st of December. Is most people are going to know about this, but be in a debilitated, paralysed position unless they've learned the information that you've got in front of you.
Okay, I need to ask, again, just one last time.
I'm gonna ask
what
one
you're
last
saying.
time.
You're So there's not going to be a revaluation of the Vietnamese dong where individuals that have purchased certain amounts would be able to exchange that for a reset.
So a lot of people here, Julian, around have purchased this dong and what have you, and they're trying to figure out, are they gonna be of any value, right?
Well, they've done it many times before. Kuwait has revalued their own currency, and so it's not a secret that there are a number of countries out there that have currencies prepared to be revalued, whether it could go up or go down. And right now, apparently the dong is at the head of the list. So what you're saying is that's not going to happen.
It's not that it's going to happen. It's okay. And in this thing, I can only answer what they're doing. It's just on your part. It's getting your mind around. They're converging everything to all dissipate into one world currency. Okay, so that the Great Reset means that it works on the level of everybody is going to lose out apart from the central bankers.
Okay, those are two different things. Now I'm clear. We're talking two different things. Because I understand the history of the Great Reset that you're referencing. The individual countries that have individual currencies that have been in the world for quite some time to have a different revaluation compared to the Great Reset you're referencing. They've been addressed separately, not together.
Yep, and it's no different than you. It's no different than you doing changing or exchanging things on a basis of what you call a dollar that doesn't come from the bank, but you sit there and say to somebody, "I'll give you 10 of the old dollar coins that have been not circulated anymore, and I'll give you eggs for your potatoes." Blah 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 blah. Is that you could say that the dollar won't disappear? It will just be everyone will just be trying to do something with the old coins. It works on exactly the same basis. On your part, it's recognising what is a promissory note and what is an exchange tool. It could be any name. Is they can never stop people making exchange and trade. I'll give you something for what you give me something.
We might have to be doing our own trading.
Yeah.
Right?
I think we're talking.
Anyone else? Glenn?
I'm
Looks
about
like
to.
he's gonna ask something.
I know what you're talking about, but what you're talking about is on your part. It's because of the central banking controls that are in that country, because they're not so developed and working off of the bond equity on a public level so much. Is that their public aren't doing things on a credit card basis so much. So if you think of how the credit card is taking over an old currency, it's getting that reference to the difference between what people trade and what corporate trade, and the corporations are destroying everything that's public owned. It's just that the places you're talking about are going to have a more aggressive change. That everything you're talking about currency-wise on a official basis is going to be destroyed, but there is always going to be black markets is probably the best term, which would mean they're probably going to keep it running through the black market.
Okay. Well,
Does that help?
In other words, don't count on getting anything for your
Does
dog.
that help?
in other words, get gold and silver and maybe some cryptos, because cryptos could get taken down and do bartering. Got to barter.
Definitely.
Yep.
Definitely
In the UK, I couldn't say about no, but in the UK, you probably see we've got what are called coppers, which are 1s and 2p's, and they are financially worth nothing. They're actually worth more now as the copper, and people don't realise that the 2p coin is worth more than the pound coin because it's actually a valuable money. So that they've even inverted the values of the money. So the cheapest coin is actually worth more than the pound coin. For exactly what we're talking about.
So,
Okay.
hey, lastly, what do you think about your queen?
In what sense?
Oh, what do you think about her? You like her? trust
I
her?
heard she was dead.
Is she alive?
I've never spoken to her. Jody, I've never spoken to her. Jody's pen pals with her, so
I
you'll have
did
to
write
ask
to
Jody.
her.
He said I'm gonna let her out.
She's all volatile.
Okay, well, I think we got everything.
On
Anything you want to close out?
on that level, yeah, I was going to say on that level, on the regard to the royal family and the stuff to do with all of the decoding and stuff like that, you've only got to look into the birthdays in particular, what they've done with Prince William's birthday, Prince Harry's birthday, the events, how they all coordinate off of it. Prince Harry is coded to the synagogue of Satan. Prince William is coded to the solstice and the solstice line that the Buckingham Palace all sits on. So again, they're literally all, they are all puppeteered, but they are part and parcel of everything that's going on.
Okay, we want to thank you for taking the time to tell us all about this, because I know that you had a lot of time involved in research, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian.
Thanks, Julian.
This concludes this week's meeting, so we'll do it again next Tuesday. By the way, we're going to have Hoffines here August the 3rd. He's running for governor.
That's great.
He'll be here August the 3rd.
Yeah, I think that.